Both your parents worked for GM. They're both designers, right? Your dad in particular, Tom Peters, chief of design for C6 and C7 Corvette.
Yeah, and
kind
C8,
of
and C8.
And C8?
Yeah.
I didn't know C8. So kind of a fucking big deal.
And I had the manual exhaust cutouts because I couldn't afford the electric ones. So my parents were like, "You are not driving that car to school with open headers." And I was like, "Okay." So I had the wrenches in my school bag, and I'd get to the end of the street, and I'd get out in my school uniform, unbolt my cutouts. I've
heard the mini skirts and the halter tops in the purse, but I've never heard the tools to be able to pull the Metallica or Def Leppard.
Def Leppard.
Poison or Guns N' Roses?
Guns N' Roses, I think.
Cinderella or Billy Squier?
Cinderella.
Tommy Lee or Axl Rose?
Nikki Sixx.
People make such a push to be like, we're going to do an all-girl build or we're going to do an all-girl thing.
Yeah, shut the fuck up with that shit. Just build the car.
Yeah.
You know, China owns all pandas.
Yeah.
Welcome back to another edition of Oil and Whiskey. This week we have Adrienne Peters, none other than former GM, right?
Guilty.
GM employee, guilty. I'm going to tell you right now. So generally we have we try to be loose, right? But we have kind of a cadence. We kind of start out at the same kind of thing with every guest about, tell us a story and how'd you get into this and be really interesting. This one's very interesting because I don't think you had a fucking choice. So I'm really interested to know because I know I've read
forced into it.
I've read a lot, and this would be the first time that we get to talk to somebody that has that second generation from both their parents, working for one of the big threes. You could have taken another, probably maybe like wanted to, but you might not have had a choice. Taken another direction.
I think I was born into it, and ironically, my sister is a chef, and my brother is a mechanical engineer, and I'm my parents' like car child.
You the youngest?
I'm the oldest.
Oh.
The only way.
You get hit with it first. You had no other.
I had to set the standard.
Yeah.
Somebody had to. Thank you.
That's an interesting observation, Josh. We really haven't had anybody who's like multi-generational on here yet. It's usually been first-generation hot rod builder.
Yeah. You start through the same story and like, well, my dad was into it, but he didn't do this. He worked this job, or my parents weren't into it, and I really liked it. This one's going to be interesting because, you have to have a lot of story off camera. That drink's just disappearing.
Yeah.
That's a podcast in itself.
It is.
Yeah, I mean, I truly can't remember a time in my life when cars and hot rodding were not a part of it. And my earliest memories are when I was probably 4 or 5. My family and I lived in California, and my dad was leading the GM Advanced Concept Design Center. And he had bought the first fun car since they'd had kids, and it was a '69 Camaro, super clean shell. It was at a shop called California Street Rods. Yeah.
Yep, very well known.
Yes. So I had the privilege of going up there on a regular basis with my dad, seeing the progress of the car being built, and that sort of is what cemented for me wanting to be part of that industry and part of the storytelling, part of kind of designing your life and expressing your life and who you are through cars.
How old were you then?
I was about 4 or 5 is when I can remember. I mean, we can even go back earlier than that, although I don't know that I remember this myself, but growing up with, various Corvettes and Camaros in the driveway, that whatever my dad was working on at the office, which was the GM Design Center, they had a black C4 Corvette one time, and we were playing in the yard, and I loved to sit in the driver's seat naturally and pretend like I was shifting. And I put the car into neutral, and it started to roll down the driveway, and like all of a sudden my dad had to like do basically like the hood slide to jump across and jump in the car.
Yeah, they don't go back into gear after you pop it into neutral.
Yeah.
That's an old school thing.
It is.
You just don't see. Cars are so sophisticated now, but back like when we were kids,
Playing in cars?
That was happening all the time. Everybody was putting them in neutral and they're down the driveway.
Yeah, I was having a great time. So.
Where's the kids? Oh, they're out there playing in the cars. Yeah. They're just playing. It's fine. They're not going anywhere.
Entertain them.
Yeah.
At what age did you start realizing that this wasn't super normal, like amongst your friends and their parents?
Probably into my teen years. I grew up actually spending a lot of time with my parents and their friends. And unfortunately, I got none of the design talent that my parents had. So I can't draw a straight line to save my life. But
all their friends were in the industry as well, other designers and stuff?
Yeah, so like I'd stay up late and my parents would have their cool designer friends over and I would just sit, they were kind enough to just let me sit there and listen way past my bedtime to, hearing them talk about what inspired them. And I learned a lot about like color theory and gradients and form language in car design. And that extended to kind of my surroundings. We lived in a really cool mid-century modern house that they designed, and it was kind of in every aspect of my life, design and specifically automotive inspired design. But I think when I was a teenager, and I went to an all-girls school growing up, which even probably for my first few years into middle school and high school, I did my thing. I loved hanging out with my parents and doing car things and going to car shows. And my dad and I would look at Cruise News, which was a local, I think mostly Michigan publication, and it just had a directory of all of the car shows every week. And we would just kind of sit down together and kind of map out our plan of, which ones are we going to go to this week? And
you sounded super cool, like, super cool.
I don't know that other people thought that, but
in an all-girls school, probably not. Right?
Yeah, that's what.
How does that
probably
go?
way cooler.
There's so many
being
stories
facetious.
around that. Yeah, I was. When I was 16, I'd been saving for many years to get my first car, which was a '99 Camaro SS. Not the coolest car by any stretch of the imagination, but at the time, that was my fantasy car.
Yeah.
That car was my whole world. I washed it like 3 or 4 times a week in the driveway, and every spare moment of my life when I was not doing homework was driving my car, looking at my car, taking pictures of my car.
Black.
All of my cars have always been black. It was navy blue metallic.
That's your color.
I had a 2002 SS navy blue.
4th gen Mafia, man. Yeah.
That was the same car. Did they tweak? I didn't really follow those.
Did that have the molded in headlights, or were those still like the pocket one on 99?
It was the molded headlights.
Okay,
So it was the
they were-
facelift in 98. They switched to that.
Okay.
Yeah,
You
but I
guys
had
are SS
T-tops.
buddies.
Yep.
Same thing. All right. Blue T-tops.
Ultimate drift machine.
I want to know what was in the CD player on both of them.
That was some good music. There was probably some West Side Connection, maybe some DMX. I think Nelly.
Nice.
311, Sublime, Beastie Boys.
West
Okay.
Side Connection hit pretty hard in Bill's ride.
That was a staple.
What was in yours?
I was actually very old school. Again, inspiration from my dad.
Beatles.
Journey, Def Leppard,
Okay.
Led Zeppelin. I was really into a hair metal phase back then. So like anything 80s, Guns N' Roses,
Poison.
Poison. Yeah. Motley Crue. I was an
some good
absolute
stuff.
Motley
Yeah.
Crue freak back in the day. Yeah.
I never would have guessed driving a Camaro. It's perfect.
Yeah.
With
Gen
T-tops
hairband.
too.
Yeah. So I guess, I had a group of girls that I hung out with at school, but I still, most of my time was spent hanging out with my parents and their friends, and going to car things, pretty much in all of my spare time. But, my parents got regular phone calls from the school. I had, continuing to save my babysitting money. I put a 3-inch exhaust on it, cold air intake, tuned, hooker headers, and I had the manual exhaust cutouts. Because I couldn't afford the electric ones.
Slide
The
under
old
there.
cable.
So
when you were
my mom was
expecting
like-
some action, huh?
Yeah. So my parents were like, "You are not driving that car to school with open headers." And I was like, "Okay." So I had the wrenches in my school bag, and I'd get to the end of the street, and I'd get out in my school uniform, unbolt my cutout.
I've heard the mini skirts and the halter tops in the purse, but I've never heard the tools to be able to pull the.
Did you have the hooker ones that came with the little mandrel bent piece of tube as the wrench that was notched out for the wing nuts? Because I was rocking that. I had a '69 Camaro when I was in high school.
I just had
those on there.
normal. I just had my
Regular nuts
Craftsman
and bolts?
wrenches. Yeah, just not like the wing nuts.
nutted them. Yeah.
Yeah. It was,
Mean machine.
yeah. So I would drive to school with, I mean, and the car probably sounded horrible because
It sounds cool when you're that age.
it sounded cool
right?
to
It's
me,
not
and it
cool
was
to you.
loud and obnoxious, and I was just living my best life at the time.
At an all-girls school.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they...
So I would drive to school, well, I didn't rip into the parking lot, truly. Like, I would drive in at a normal speed, and they had cameras everywhere and everything, and they had people monitoring, so I couldn't do anything crazy, nor did I want to get in trouble. But the car was loud, and I'd come in there with my T-tops off, blasting, fill in the blank classic rock, Motley Crue, something. And so my parents would get phone calls from the school. Adrienne's doing burnouts. Adrienne's street racing, blah, blah, blah. And thank God my parents knew me well enough. I was an honor student, and like they really couldn't throw the book at me because I was a good kid. I was a good student. And my mom would be like, well, that's impossible because you've got speed bumps all over the parking lot, and she's got a couple inches of ground clearance. So she'd rip the headers and the exhaust system right off her car.
This thing's lower with the front
Yeah, she
splitter.
just-
It's not
You
playing
forget
that.
who you're talking to. Forget who you're
Hole in
talking
that story, didn't she?
So my parents were fielding calls like that pretty regularly. But there was one that I couldn't get out of, which was probably, back when it happened, it was not my proudest moment, but now it's a fun story to tell. I had one of my buddies, or my brother was in Boy Scouts. I can tell you the long version if you want the full effect.
We're here for a sit-down conversation, so get after it.
So I'll paint the scene for you. So my brother was a Boy Scout, and he and his den troop, I don't remember what they were called, but they were all getting their Eagle Scout like ceremony, and they always have an older kid that is like their mentor. And this kid was in my grade at another school, and he was one of my car friends, and like he had a Mustang, I had a Camaro, so naturally we were just beating up on each other all the time. It was this non-stop Camaro versus Mustang, Ford versus Chevy. Like, we just wouldn't leave each other alone about it. So we were coming back from leaving the Eagle ceremony, and he was a Boy Scout too. So this was like everybody's in their attire and all of that.
Their Boy Scout gear.
Yeah. And I'm in my school uniform, and we're leaving the ceremony, and just immediately leave the parking lot, and we're just light to light for miles, like changing lanes to get in. I was using my turn signals, changing lanes to get like up to the light, and we were just racing the whole time. And then I started to have a bad feeling, and I saw a police car. I'm trying to think of a way it was a bi-directional road in Michigan. We have these Michigan lefts where you can turn around.
We can talk about that. That's a whole podcast in itself. Those are fucked up. Great.
You just have to know how to use them.
You'd be solid in a fourth gen. You drift that whole thing and come right back around.
I mean, I wouldn't know what that's like, but hypothetically,
we did it in a dually
would.
several times in the snow.
Oh, that's impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love a dually drift moment.
Do a lot of dually drifting.
Yeah.
The uneasy feeling, the sick feeling, it always comes just a tad too late.
And it did.
Yeah.
Very late.
It's always like, I should probably slow down.
Yeah.
When you slow down, it's always at the wrong time.
Yeah. So I saw the squad car, and I was like, I'm just going to tell myself it's going to be fine. I know it's not going to be fine. So I get to the Michigan left, and I'm behind my buddy, and we turn, and then immediately on come the lights. And then we see other squad cars coming.
That means they saw you a while back.
Then we see motorcycles, and then like a Suburban, like a K9 unit car. They barricade us into a subdivision. And I'd been pulled over before, but like just for kind of normal speeding.
Right.
So, and I'm sitting there, I was, I think 17 at the time.
Tears need to start coming, and even though he's in a Boy Scout uniform, that dude was chasing you. He was 100% chasing you.
I am proud to say I have never, and I will send later the stack of tickets that I still have. I have never cried to get out of a ticket, ever.
Good job. I would have cried at that one to get out of a ticket. That's the first thing that came to my mind. That dude was chasing me.
Yeah, I mean, I was just so in shock from the whole thing. Why was I in shock? I'd been pulled over before.
Did they get you on radar or have a visual, or somebody just called?
It was actually an off-duty officer.
Ew.
And
Street
so
racing.
there's more to come around to that. So I'm just in full panic mode. And they send the female officer to go and talk to me. And I called my friend. I was like, what do I do? What am I supposed to do? What do you want me to say? And he's like, don't say anything. I got it. I'm like, okay. So the female officer comes over and talks to me. She's like, roll up your windows. And because I was in panic mode, I did. And she was like, oh, see, those are tinted.
Oh.
Very dark.
They're throwing the book at you.
Yeah. Oh, like, and
Those are fun times.
yeah, so I'm like, oh, yep, they are. Okay. So she goes back to the car.
Check out this exhaust. You'll love it. Give me just a second. I got a couple wrenches.
Not to digress, but I used to, if I thought I was going to get pulled over, I'd pull over and I would open the hood. I'd jump out of the car, which shouldn't be doing that. Jump out of the car, I'd pop the hood, and I would unbolt the hose. I would unbolt the hose clamp that held the cold air intake, had one of those SLP intakes on it. Yeah. And I'd unbolt and I'd be like, oh, officer, I heard something rattling and I just had to fix it. And I would just have to
Don't
pray.
take the moral high ground that you never cried, because you had other ways around it.
But you had to just like pray that you weren't going to get an officer that knew about cars.
Right.
Which luckily when I did pull that one out, it did work for me. But anyways, so they're making me wait in the car and I'm just like, what's happening? And I think we were there for an hour and a half or something. And I'm just sitting in my car, just like rotting, like my life is over.
They're just making you sweat it out.
Yeah. So they let us go. I don't know what, to this day, I don't know what my buddy said to the cops, but they let us go.
What?
Friday night, nothing. So I'm like, and I'm still losing my mind. I'm like, this is just going to escalate. I went to a White Stripes concert that night. I'm like, I'm just going to pretend like this never happened. Not going to tell them. And I asked my buddy, I'm like, should I tell my parents? He's like, no, don't say anything. Okay. So weekend rolls around and I'm trying to like act cool all weekend. Monday, I'm in my AP US history class and my cell phone rings. We're not allowed to have phones. And I'm like, this, I knew.
It's an odd time for the phone to be ringing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So I like sneak out, answer the phone in the bathroom. It's my mom. She's like, so do you want to tell me what happened on Friday night? I almost like, nope.
It's a great concert.
Concert was awesome.
Sure don't. White Stripes were awesome. Loved it.
Car got stolen earlier in the day.
I didn't tell you that.
Yeah, but I found it afterwards. Yeah.
Oh, good.
I was getting chased by this crazy dude in a Mustang. He couldn't catch
In a
me.
Boy Scout uniform.
Other than that, all good. Yeah.
What about your weekend? How was it?
Yeah. So apparently an off-duty officer called it in, and then the same officer called my parents the next week and said, look, I was on the way to my daughter's homecoming and I saw how young your daughter was and I thought of my own child and wanting to make sure that she's safe driving when she's driving. My mom, again, to my credit, bailed me out. And she said, look, my daughter's like, I hear what you're saying. She's an honor student. She's at Sacred Heart. And, what are we going to do here? And they both agreed that I needed to be punished for my actions. But he said, I really don't want to ruin her driving record. She's got a clean driving record. And, this is a reckless driving and a street racing.
It's a bad one.
Yeah. Be real bad at 17.
Mom should have stepped in and be like, as a GM engineer, I can attest to the fact that these had sticky accelerator pedals. And
so they agreed that the appropriate punishment was going to be essentially the same as what the police would have done, but without the points and the insurance and all of that. So they took my car away for 3 months, and that was the longest 3 months.
It's a little unreasonable.
Probably 2 months was the fact that you didn't come home and tell them.
So then I cried because my car was that was my social life, was my car. And like, whether it was just me driving around on Woodward Avenue or, going anywhere in that car, that was my whole world. And so to me, like, that was the worst thing that could possibly happen, was like losing my car and having to stare at it, walk past it in the driveway or in the garage every day for 3 months. So that was...
Would have been a perfect time to pull the motor, do a little work, put a cam in it.
Yeah. Sadly, babysitting money wasn't really...
Wasn't adding up.
wasn't really at the supercharger level.
So
More importantly, did you beat the Mustang? We didn't touch on that yet.
Every time.
Was it pretty extreme, or was it just like a short light to light, like a first, second pull, or were you guys really getting after it?
Somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
Yeah. It was good fun.
First,
No.
second, fifth.
Skip shift?
Yeah.
This
Yeah,
fuel
so
mileage, though.
That may have also been around the time when I realized that, like, my life was not normal at all. But that was fine. I love...
none of your other girlfriends were getting in trouble like that.
No.
For that type of stuff.
No, I actually, I was so committed to my car and that lifestyle that, like, I actually never drank until I was 21, because immediately I was like, if I drink, I can't drive my car. If I can't drive my car, what is the purpose of life? But
That's good. That's great. It's a really good way to keep sober and keep from doing stupid shit.
So my troublemaking in high school underage was all
car
related.
At what age, you talked about hanging out with your parents and all of their friends. You got to hear all the design talk. You got to hear everything. I'm sure you also got to hear about, the bitching about the bosses about not letting us take this design this way and doing all that kind of stuff. So you really got, from a young age, whether you understood it or not, by osmosis, stuff's coming in, right? At what point did you say, I'm going to work with cars some way for a living? Where do you start thinking about what you're going to do with your life? At what age?
When I saw my dad's '69 Camaro, probably when we moved to California for him to run the Advanced Concept Center, I would go. That was back when you were allowed to, like, if he had to go in on a Saturday or something, you could take like a kid with you or something. So I got to see a little of that growing up, and then GM would have open house days or family days. But just being in that environment that was so inspirational, so passionate. Everything in my life is driven by passion for cars, especially. And I've always been a firm believer that, I mean, if you follow your passion, you will find joy and success in life. That has to be your North Star, no matter what.
Great advice.
Good.
Yeah.
Really good advice.
So I really did. I had a very clear sense of what he did and what the world that my parents worked in very young somehow, probably because I was just also obsessed with that culture, with car culture. And when I put myself through college, I was bartending and working as a metal fabricator and mechanic at a shop called Custom Creations in Sterling Heights, Michigan.
Is it custom with a K or just C?
With a K.
Both?
Custom with a K and C Creations with a C.
C, okay.
Yeah. So that was kind of when, like, I'm in marketing, communications, and strategy now, but that was sort of where I started to have a sense more for the storytelling behind cars, like actually being able to think about it in the context of a career. And at the time, I had built a 78 Chevy Silverado 10-inch lift, like went through it front to back, rewired it, rebuilt the engine.
10-inch lift, you're definitely a Michigan girl.
I was going to say Michigan or Alabama. Which Michigan is really just northern Alabama.
Confederate flag either way.
Yeah.
The Detroiters, on behalf of Detroiters, we've got maybe some similarities, but we like to think we're pretty individual.
I know. But there's we've talked about this on this podcast. We actually, when we had Whitey Morgan on, right?
Which was
He's from Flint, right? And we talk. I'm like, dude, we've always joked about how country Michigan thinks they are, right? Or really is, but
or like up north. Have you been in the UP?
Oh, that's
Where they call
that's
them
different.
The Upers?
That's different.
That's
Detroit's separate, right? Because Detroit, you're right.
Yeah.
That's the Michigan thing.
That's what we do.
Right.
Yeah.
Boom. That's Detroit. If you're like here, like anywhere in this area, like Cadillac, Grand Rapids, like on the outskirts of Grand Rapids,
definitely more country.
yeah, it's like yeah, like you said, it's basically they think they're geographically located
south of
of
Mason.
Alabama,
Right.
somewhere like right there at Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, but Detroit, I will say, and like I like to share this. I have some friends who are like, no, I'm actually, it's my sister. I'm going to call her out on that. She likes to gatekeep Detroit and how great it really is. But to me, I'm so proud to be from. I didn't grow up in downtown, so before anyone wants to call me out on that, I'm very proud of the city and how it's transformed and how we as a greater community have really worked to transform into Detroit into something incredible that still has this Motor City grit to it, but it's a safe city, it's a clean city, it's a very multifaceted city and that spirit of car culture and the big three is still, I think, very, very present even in the downtown area and kind of in the remote surrounding suburbs, with Woodward and the Dream Cruise and all of that activity.
I wanted to get to Woodward, and you brought it up twice now, so it's probably the best time to get. So, explain Woodward from somebody that lives there and that it's just part of your normal everyday life.
Well, and
right?
explain it. I've never been there.
Right.
I've never been.
Dude.
Believe it or not. So
Yeah.
We've never been to the Dream Cruise, right?
Right.
And so from the outside looking in, you kind of know what it is. But I'm very interested in 20 years ago, Woodward, and how.
all I think every time you mention the word, the image instantly comes into my mind is that shopping cart, like the big shopping cart with the blower motor in it, driving around. For some reason, it's embedded in my mind. I think I saw it in a car crash.
The stories that I've always heard,
Yeah.
especially, and I think
Cruise
there's
down Woodward.
there's positive and negatives for how crazy Woodward's got in the last probably 10, 12 years. But
Yeah, absolutely.
I've always heard stories about, 20 years ago about the Dream Cruise and, stuff
Yeah.
and how many crazy execs and, you'd be like, holy shit, that's actually riding stuff that was pulled out of the vault. And it was playtime.
Yeah, it really was. And I mean, and to this day, there are still there's some very long running Cars and Coffee. Before Cars and Coffee became a thing, there's one there that is still quite small. It's maybe 25, 30 cars. But it is the most eclectic group of vehicles and people, a lot of retired design executives, current executives, engineers from all of the big three that come up there. And, you're hearing there are people there that worked on some of the most iconic vehicles on the road, like classic vehicles back in the 60s and 70s. And you kind of overhear these whispers and stories. But now there's, kind of the younger generation that started to come, or people that have brought their kids there growing up, and car photographers that come. And it's this really interesting combination of people from different generations, but it's sort of it's a little less of a best kept secret now, but, still it's still my favorite Cars and Coffee to go to, because it's still a little bit undiscovered and it's not glamorous by any means.
It's so wild. It's wild just sitting here, honestly, having this conversation. But it's wild when we think back about it, about growing up and being influenced in the stuff that we did and played with, whatever. It seemed so far away, right? Like OE designers, right? And what's coming from the big three. We're kind of in hot rod world, right? And there's even up until several years ago, you thought that there was this huge disconnect, right? And anybody in the big three doesn't pay attention to the aftermarket, right? You kind of think that, right? You kind of think well, they're not, nobody's paying attention to what we're doing, right?
The SEMA dollar car program kind of was shocking as to giving you a glimpse into that, because you get the opportunity to sit with all these designers and stuff, and they're mentioning stuff that they've seen you build.
It's
and
wild.
We saw that, and that's super cool, and I love what you did here. And you're like, oh, you guys are looking at that stuff? That's pretty cool.
What I've found, especially, through the GM Design Awards, which we're going to talk about, through even this podcast and having conversations with people like you and people like Ralph and other people that have been in the industry. At the end of the day, it's just fucking car guys.
Yeah.
It's just a different job and a different part of it, right? But the car guy's a car guy, right? Yeah. So you're into it.
You put them up on such a pedestal, that's
like
Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And also, particularly for this conversation, we kind of blew past, both your parents worked for GM. They're both designers, right? Your dad in particular, Tom Peters, right? Chief of design for C6 and C7 Corvette.
Yeah. And
kind
C8,
of
and C8.
And C8?
Yeah.
I didn't know C8. So kind of a fucking big deal. However, All that's great. Personally, to me, he designed the Banshee, the Pontiac Banshee.
I have a great picture to send you guys to
So
attach to this.
Pontiac Banshee back in the
I'm
day.
familiar with it. It was like a vet.
I had
Yeah.
It was like
I had
C-
a lot of the models.
C3 looking.
I built the model. Then I also realized that the model that Revell built,
Yeah.
it was one of the biggest wheels on any models. So I bought a shit ton of other Banshee models
Oh, to use the
to
wheels
yank the
on it.
wheels for other Camaros and other vets and other models that I
Okay.
was doing as a young
Did
young
that
boy.
particular car have like a 16 or 17-inch wheel? This fucking bug.
I know. We're gonna have to stop the podcast and take care of this.
I just keep following it all.
Yeah.
Be one of those electric.
The zapper.
Yeah,
this
the
sounds
executioner.
We'll look at the wheel right now. Let's pull it up. We
it
have
up.
that technology.
great. I come across that car all the time because I take a lot of influence from like classic concept cars for a lot of
Yeah.
stuff we do, and that car's always just catches my eye. It's beautiful.
I love that you guys do that, and I've picked up on that as well because I mean, concept cars are much fewer and further between than they used to be, but I've always loved it. Like designers are always living 10 years ahead, and you get to get kind of a peek into their perspective on the world and on car culture when they release concept cars.
Dude, we're talking about two totally different Banshees. I'm talking about the old one.
Oh, you're
from
talking about the old one.
Yeah.
No, I'm
And
talking
you're
about
okay.
That's
I'm
the
talking
one
about
I
the
thought
bat.
you were talking
Gotcha.
about. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, so-
I'm talking
Or
about the badass one.
And then there's the Corvette Indy, which is
The Corvette Indy, I also had the model. That was mid-engine back. Well, the concept car was mid-engine.
Yes.
Yeah. Remember the Indy Vet,
Yes, I do.
the model.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's why they'll say, and you'll hear this in interviews about the C8, that car is quite literally 50 plus years in the making.
That
I had no idea that he was involved with C8.
with your love for that Banshee, I see the Probe GT.
Now you get it.
Yeah, because it's got like some
It's
lines
future, it was
there.
future,
It was futuristic.
There's futuristic of that time that you look like. Now, I mean, let's face it, the Ford Probe GT was,
Right.
a
Superior
mechanical
to-
masterpiece compared to the Pontiac Band. But in any other way, I think it's important for especially audience members that don't possibly know, who we're talking about to talk about that. And the Pontiac Banshee was a badass. I can't imagine like at that age of just seeing that type of stuff, and then the path you've taken and the circles you run in and having conversations or whatever, and stuff gets brought up, and you're kind of like, oh, that was hanging like on our living room wall. Yeah, I remember that. I remember like watching him draw it. I remember
Yeah.
doing that kind of stuff. That's got to be like surreal. Forget about everything else we're talking about. Like that's fucking nuts.
I will say, and I've said this for a long time, like I will never get too old to say that I'm just in awe of both my parents and their talent and their vision and their passion, really. Their passion above all else. I still look at them with the same awe that I did when I was a kid.
That's pretty cool.
And they're just, as people, they're so wonderful and so generous, and their talent just kind of, it's all fueled by those things. And my dad, both of them really are just like, our garage is full of big block hot rods, which we can talk about. But they are as normal and down to earth and chill as you could, especially my dad. It's just all of our
he's a
jobs
car
to
guy.
just kind of like look at, like manage my dad, kind of not no one can manage him really, but he's so much fun, and he's just, he's avid about just finding joy in every moment in life. Even when it makes things difficult.
Well, we're gonna have. I apologize. I'm really off my game because my mind is going 1,000 miles an hour now because we're talking beforehand coming on, talking about having your dad on. You talked about he's friends with Ralph, and I'm replaying stuff, and I didn't know anything about the C8.
You're
and
worried
then
because we said some things about the
No, Ralph said the C8
And I
was
just
over designed.
agreed, and I just
Ralph said
kind
the
of
C8
agreed.
was over
No.
designed, and now you're telling me the thing, and like, well, they're friends. I'm like, and all this is playing through my head. Is like, shit, he's gonna have to come on here. We're gonna have to figure that out. Like,
Just walk it back.
yeah, I didn't say anything about it. It was all Ralph. I'm gonna make him issue an apology.
No. That's the thing. Like at that level, like there's so much respect for each other's perspectives, and that's why, different designers have kind of their signatures, and they're things that my dad loved. I guess I remember growing up that he didn't love so much growing up that now he's got a new or a different appreciation for. And that's sort of like the 69 Camaro that I grew up with. Like that's my mecca. That's my kind of gold standard muscle car. His in particular, just because it's what drove so much of the inspiration for me. But he also has a 65 Impala now that he calls it the ice cream cruiser, and
Dave calls it the same thing.
Still big block, still 4-speed, but it's a much more like, it's an ice cream cruiser. And he'll even say, he's like, he has a different appreciation for those cars that he didn't used to, as an example.
That's interesting. At what point in time did your parents have the conversation where they start asking you, like, so what's your plan? What are you thinking?
I said I wanted to work in the car industry. I mean, as long as I can remember.
I know you said 6 years old you're wanting. So are you having those conversations at 10, at 11, at 12, at 13?
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to be a car designer like them for a long time until
What do they tell you then?
They always supported anything I ever wanted to do.
Okay.
They did not tell me that I was the most atrocious artist that they'd ever witnessed in their whole life, which is what I would have said about myself.
I mean, you got to encourage it for a little while until you realize that it's just not happening.
Believe it or not, like I do remember they would, because my mom, she was a professor at CCS after she left GM, and she's taught there for many years. But I remember them always talking about working with other designers or whatever. They're like, you either have it or you don't. And it was never directed at me, but I would.
Is that weighing in your mind the whole time?
Well, it wasn't weighing in my mind, but I took that and like very matter of factly, probably when I was, I don't know, 9 or 10, something like that, getting a little bit older. And I realized, I'm like, this is not my calling. I just knew. And I kind of would always come back to that in my mind. And I'm like, if this isn't clicking with me, there has to be something else that is. And I need to explore what all those things are.
It's almost a good thing hearing it at that, because you came to the conclusion earlier, like, okay, you either have it or you don't. There's no in between. It's not like I can work harder and get it. It's just, I don't have it.
You either
so
have
pivot
it or
to
you
the
don't.
next thing.
Yeah. So then I latched onto, as I got my first car and made friends with other kids my age on Woodward that had all different types of cars, different muscle cars, lifted trucks, Jeeps, newer cars, older cars, like kind of you name it in our kind of group of friends on Woodward. And I was like, I want to be a mechanic. I want to build cars. I don't think I was aware of you guys back then, but like do basically what you guys were doing. And then I sort of moved into working for custom creations and when I was in university. But as I started to go to the SEMA show, I went for the first time when I was 19. And I still have the same like, holy shit moment when I set foot in the trade show. I probably shouldn't, having worked on SEMA for GM for so long, because it is a grind, as you guys know.
Of course.
We can bullshit all we want to about how hard and tough it is and how much
we wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
That first walk in, right? Or even getting out of the cab of your car, and you're walking on the thing.
You smell it.
There's that little spark, that little bolt of electricity, whatever. It's still there. It's fucking there, and I don't care how many times you go. I don't care how tired you are.
Right after that little spark of like, holy fuck, I'm fucking hungover this morning.
Well, yeah, no,
then you get in the cab.
No, Tuesday and
go.
No, when she would call it, at 12 o'clock at night and say that the awards is at 5:30 a.m. for the GM Design Awards the next morning. That's when you're like,
Sorry.
fuck this.
That was a horrible.
But I will tell you guys were talking about like kind of the kind of virtual distance between all the builders and the OEs. I'm not kidding. When we would have the Chevy SEMA Design Awards, and like my job was to kind of like architect the program so that the designers could do what they do best and kind of focus on evaluating the cars and visiting you guys, visiting the different shops. When we would get our PowerPoint, I'd put together a PowerPoint of everyone's renderings and things. And the second a Roadster shop car would come up, they're going to win they're going to win something. We're not sure what it is yet, but they're definitely going to win.
Nice.
That's cool. Awesome.
Like you guys it was like, oh.
Could we win the late award ceremony? Like make it to 10 a.m. or something? That'd be a great award.
Did we do it? Was it on Wednesday? Was it Wednesday or Thursday? I can't remember.
I think it's Wednesday.
I think it was Wednesday.
And it was
but you guys had your
early.
party on Wednesday night was the Gran Turismo party. And then your guys' party was
We weren't.
Thursday night.
Yeah, but we weren't.
Yeah, we did the last year, I think.
1 year we got it. Yeah.
The
We got
bat,
the Chevelle out
but
there.
when it was
That
tough,
car right there.
it was before the party. It was
Yeah, it was.
when it was.
I can recall there was a year. I think we got 3 design awards.
said,
and-
screw it, let's just party all night because
Well, we did that anyway.
3 hours of sleep ain't gonna do anything.
You always go into that saying like, let's shut it down a little early. This is a big deal.
We're getting older,
Like,
guys. We
and
need to
then
be
there's-
more professional. We need to
there's
start
always-
being more adults.
There's always somebody that just eggs you on, and then it just fucking goes and goes and goes and goes. But walking in at like white as a ghost, and then they had you like speak, right? So you're trying to like find your words because the brain's not really working. It's rough, but it is actually an incredible honor. So it's don't mean to
Absolutely incredible.
diminish it by coming in hungover as fuck. But
No,
it's
that's
SEMA,
But
To-
we're professionals. We all hit it very well, even though we were all dying inside.
right.
You just learn how to do it.
that is where, I mean, to your point, like we're talking about that is the where you're like, holy shit, these are like, that's the designers, like they pay attention, like they're seeing
They're
what
car
we're doing
guys.
here. They're car
It's
guys.
back to what you said.
That's
They're all just car guys.
yeah.
Is where they
Yeah.
know who the hell we
I mean-
are, and they spitting up like 5 years of history on cars that we've built, and you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
We're,
the same.
we're somebody now.
I think there was a picture that you had up with like my dad in a suit next to a Corvette, but it's like I grew up with him working on stuff in the garage in one of his many Rat Fink t-shirts and like swim trunks and his like Docksider shoes. That's his summer. As soon as it starts to get warm, that's what Tom's rolling.
Ed
in.
Roth, the influence that he's had on very like
Poor
well-known
fashion.
No, how many well-known designers always reference like like Hot Rod Magazine and Ed Big Daddy Roth and like the Rat Fink and this stuff.
Yeah.
And they were so like the cartoonishness of all of the drawings, like they were so drawn to it, and they always talk and reference. I'm talking about guys that have designed. I mean, you're talking about C5, C6, or C6, C7, and C8, and he was influenced by like Roth. Like that's wild when you think about the two
Was he
totally different.
Truly influenced, or did you just like the shirts? Did he?
No,
was
he's
there-
truly influenced. Like, I mean, we've got Ed Big Daddy Roth stuff all over the house, they have all over their house. And over the years, working with them at the Detroit Autorama, they've actually, the family has also eventually become good friends of my parents now.
I read that in
Which
an
is-
article, so I don't want you to think that I was just that good.
I figured you did.
I read it. I read it beforehand. I prepared. All right.
Of course you did.
You're right. But
Yeah, but it has truly been probably one of, if not the strongest influence on what inspired my dad to become a car designer in the first place was Ed Big Daddy Roth.
That's cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, and on my Monte Carlo on the firewall, I have a little Rat Fink. He's my mascot on the Monte.
we're all over the place. I told you beforehand. I said just be prepared because there's. So we're back to SEMA, right? And you
Yeah.
talk about that electricity. You're working for Custom Creations. You don't have to talk too much about the shop or whatever you want, whatever you're comfortable with. But what are you telling them that your plan is, and what is their feedback to you of like, all right, yeah, cool, you're gonna go to SEMA, whatever, and you're telling them like, I'm gonna take over the world. You don't understand. I'm gonna take this industry by storm.
I think I will say I've always been very transparent about my passion for the industry, and one of the most, as you can imagine, one of the most common questions, I guess, what is it like? What is it like being a female in this industry? And I'm like, I've been very fortunate to have an incredible experience, the same as any other car guy in the industry, because what I found is, number one, when you're transparent about your passion and when you're forward about that and you let that guide you, people who also share that passion, they want to encourage it. They pick up on it. They want to encourage it. They want to share with you. They want to teach you. They want to mentor you. And the other thing is I just lost my train of thought.
It had the whiskey.
There were two things.
Whiskey will do that.
It's the TX. No. But it truly, I remember the second thing is that I've been very careful to work closely with and stay close to people who who understand what I'm all about and appreciate that passion. And sure, I've worked with people, I've met people in my life who don't take me seriously or whatever. It's like, and sometimes in a career standpoint, you don't always have the luxury of like, oh, I'm not working with that person. You've got to find a way.
Yeah.
You just got to find a way. But it's about finding those people who will be your champions and your supporters. And I think that goes for anyone in any industry. That's the advice I give my sister in the culinary industry. And, to anyone else, it's, find the people that get you, that see you and see your vision and your passion and are going to support and champion that. So I've done that throughout my whole career. And at Custom Creations, they took time to kind of teach me, let me work in different parts of the shop and metal fab and the paint booth and body work, doing just kind of general mechanical assembly things. And going to SEMA, I think, was probably where that switch flipped, when I realized that I think what had been the constant all along was the stories. And again, bringing it back to car guys, we're all just car guys. Going to Cars and Coffee, going to cruise nights, hanging out on Woodward, meeting new people, learning about what got them into cars, being able to tell those stories and curate those stories. That's kind of how I found myself going down the marketing path and marketing and communications. So I worked when I graduated from university, I worked for Chevy Racing through one of GM's marketing agencies, and I basically was a GM employee without a GM email address. But I sat at the RenCen at the headquarters and traveled 37 weeks out of the year to all of the different professional levels of racing series that GM was involved with, from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, World of Outlaws, dirt track racing, NHRA. So I got to do a little bit of everything and curate the Chevy racing story. And then also starting to work with SEMA at that time. But the other thing I had an opportunity to do was lead the partnerships and the relationships with Chevy's probably most high profile, most valuable relationships with all of the drivers, all the teams, all the tracks. Damn. Which was pretty amazing. And, I credit the leadership that I had at GM back then, who I'd worked with for many years. They, I think, saw that in me, that my innate connection to the industry, and my passion for building relationships and finding those stories. So from there, I moved to work for GM directly and led marketing for Chevrolet Performance. So another mutual connection and friend of ours, Dr. Jamie Meyer, who I've been very, very fortunate to work under his mentorship for many years. He moved over to an engineering role. So he was my predecessor as the performance marketing manager. So I moved into that role, and that quickly expanded into product marketing as well. So I had basically like communications, marketing, and then product marketing. And the coolest thing about having that additional responsibility was a lot of work, and I didn't really pay attention because I was just like, I'm just going to go full send on this. I don't care how many hours I need to put in. Like I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop myself. And, but what was so cool about it was that I got to be a part of the product development. I wasn't just telling the stories kind of leading up to and after the fact the products were launched. On the performance part side, it was being a part of, sitting with the designers and the engineers and talking about, what graphic are we going to put on the shock tube for our ZR2 off-road racing shocks, our long travel shocks, and talking about, where are we going to put the Corvette, the Corvette Jake logo on this, whatever it is, cold air, on the cold air intake or whatever part we were working on. And then working with engineering on making sure we were meeting the performance requirements and talking to them about the development or the validation process, so that we were able to kind of weave that into the story about the incredibly rigorous validation and durability testing that Chevrolet Performance Parts went through, to not only add additional performance to your GM vehicle, but also do it in a way that where it fits seamlessly. You don't have any weird sounds or weird fitment issues. It's easy to install. And it's a fully integrated product that's got the same level of quality as your vehicle does. So yeah, I mean, the storytelling side of things is really kind of where I determined that my passion truly was. And where I really got to do the most of that was around the SEMA show.
At the very beginning, you talked about you really enjoyed hanging out with your parents and listening to those stories, right? You went to an all-girls school. I would assume probably the only hardcore car girl at your school. You had a group of friends that were all into cars. Quickly making a name for yourself in GM Performance and holding the purse strings on some sponsorship and holding the purse strings on, sponsoring this motor and stuff like that. How do you handle instantly being best friends to all these people? Oh, Adrienne, I haven't seen you in years. How is it going?
Oh, you mean like media partners and stuff?
Everybody's always wanting something.
They
and
do.
you've got to, like you said, you got to continue that relationship.
Yeah.
You've got to continue working together.
Yeah.
But you also got to make them happy with the no.
Yeah, I think there were always situations where, budgets get cut. I can't spend as much as I used to, but I think one of the things that allowed me to maintain those relationships was getting to know the person themselves. So, knowing what kind of car they were passionate about. Like if someone, Brandon Galogli, for example, loves a Pontiac. So the one you've got downstairs, his name came straight into my mind. But understanding what those people are passionate about. So while I may not be able to spend as much on ad spend, can I send you a part for your project car, or can I work with you to craft a really passionate, really compelling story about a topic that you're really interested in? Because at the end of the day, these writers, these storytellers need content. They need stories. They need something interesting that their readers are going to come to the website and, consume the content,
Sure.
click on the ads and so on. So the content is just as important as the advertising is, because if you don't have good content, then advertisers are not going to invest in your platform. So that's the way I always tried to do it, was maintaining the relationship and, kind of a non-monetary way.
That was just as exciting back in the day. It's like, oh, they're calling from Chevy the block. They're going to run something on this car we built, or they want to know what we're doing for SEMA. And like, you're as big of a deal that way, just like getting recognition from Chevy that better than getting a free motor sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the coolest things that I think we did at GM was really focusing on content creation. And I was very fortunate to work with our incredible creative director, Justin Sessler, was on the agency side, but he led all things creative for Chevrolet Performance. And working with him and the network of photographers, the relationships with photographers that we had built with Jeremy Cliff, Pepper Yandel, Richard Thompson, Anthony Ross Tyler, to name a few, Andrew Link, harnessing the creative collective of their lenses and their vision and their passion for storytelling with an image, storytelling through photography, really elevated Chevrolet Performance content, both on social media and the images that we would send to them, we would share with the media. Right. Like, that was instrumental in our success from a PR perspective with SEMA.
It was huge back then.
You were kicking everybody's ass.
Thank you.
Honestly, it was obvious that you were kicking everybody's ass. When do you start seeing cracks in the wall, or we're gonna have to pull back, or we're gonna have to really pull back? Because let's face it. I mean, things are not like what they once were.
Right.
Right. And it's obvious. We're not going to blow past it. But when did you start seeing that this momentum that we've got, we're kicking everybody's ass, we're able to do this, we're working with all these collaborators, we can do anything we want, and then now I'm hearing that we can't do as much or any of it?
What was my reaction?
Well, when did you
how was it presented?
How was it presented, and when did you first start getting wind of it?
I think it's kind of the norm. You start seeing budget cuts, and we were putting forward record sales, and sometimes we always worked very hard to communicate the value of motorsports to the business.
Sure.
And
is that a hard thing to sell to them?
It is and it isn't. GM has a tremendous motorsport background, and Jim Campbell, who is another another leader that I was very fortunate to have some mentorship with. I think that was one of, something he does absolutely spectacularly and continues to do so for motorsports, and really creating communicating the value of tech transfer between the race cars and how that rolls down to production cars. And when you're building vehicles that have an accessory portfolio, a performance parts portfolio that get people excited about modifying their vehicle and telling their story through their car, that sells Corvettes, that sells Camaros, sells trucks. Most importantly, it sells trucks, sells SUVs. And now when that momentum really kind of started around the time when I started from GM, and it's absolutely exploded. They're building and selling kind of more vehicles than they ever have. The accessory portfolio has gotten huge. But there are times where the kind of collective strategy changes or budgets get shifted around. And there are certainly times where it's really nothing that we've done or didn't do. It's just a kind of a strategic change. So, there was a time when I was starting to kind of look around and keep my eyes open for other opportunities. More so that I felt like I was at a time in my career where I wanted to try something different, and I couldn't quite put my finger on what it was. So an opportunity came up through my work on the off-road racing development program with Colorado and Chad Hall. We started campaigning, I think it was 2016, Colorado in the Best in the Desert series with and the Mint 400 and some of the unlimited off-road racing series, which was another highlight in the things that I've had an opportunity to work with some incredible engineering and creative talent on. But the kind of the foundation for that race truck ended up being the foundation for the infantry squad vehicle that GM Defense builds. So kind of through that, I got connected with GM Defense, and that was sort of kind of in a bit of a startup within a big company phase within GM. And that was a really interesting, I'm like, well, that's a really interesting way to kind of go from one high performance industry to another. So
and now we enter Jason Bourne world where you can't talk about anything.
No, I can't.
Did you? I know you can't talk about it.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy it?
It was amazing to learn a new industry from scratch. I expected there to be a lot of crossover, and there was very little. And that was a big surprise. It was truly like learning an entirely different language. Even when talking about the performance parts or the vehicle, the parts that came from my old world into the defense world.
Is that mostly because they abbreviate everything?
The acronyms are unprecedented. Like I thought we had some crazy acronyms in performance, but no, they take it to another level.
Just don't say anything if you've been to Area 51. And there's actually aliens out there.
Aliens.
Are there aliens?
I will say that
they LS swapped a UFO.
LS the world. You can see the sticker on the side of it. Yeah, I mean the defense trade shows are pretty wild because they'll bring in like.
I've never been. I geek out on a lot of stuff and follow a lot of like forums that go to those.
You like a UFO guy?
No, talking about the defense trade shows. Okay. It's nuts.
Yeah, you're always preparing for like worst case scenario.
I am.
Yeah. But truly from like
I want to buy miniguns in bulk. So
like truly from an aftermarket inspiration perspective, like I would recommend going to one. There's one in DC that's huge called AUSA.
Is it open to the public?
I don't think you can just walk in, right?
You can't.
You gotta know somebody.
You got to know someone or work with a supplier or media. And there are some aftermarket companies that do display there or attend.
I'm sure you could hook it up. I'm sure you could hook it up. Hey, Adrienne, haven't seen you in a while.
Just like the old days.
Yeah. So, I was with GM Defense for, I think, about 2 years. And I think a little over a year into it, I sort of like, once it kind of hit me, like it was a little bit like, I'm never going to see my family again, kind of a feeling a little bit. I started to really like miss my roots in aftermarket and motorsports. then kind of long story longer, GM offered voluntary separation packages when they started. I think it was like last year or 2 years ago. Maybe it was last year. But I sort of kind of took that as a sign, like,
what is a voluntary
like you can
package?
choose to leave the company and that you get like a separation package. And it was only offered to people who'd been there for.
It's almost like it in the name. Like says it exactly what it is.
I mean, it's
I
like,
wasn't going to call it. I don't know how many whiskeys you've had so far.
I'm just, usually you either quit or you get fired.
Right.
You know?
Well, this
Like,
one's voluntary.
right.
Yeah.
And it's a
So-
separation.
But you're getting a
and there's
package,
with
right?
it. Right.
Yeah.
So,
Like
So I
seldom
kinda-
does somebody quit and get something when they quit. Like, yeah, see ya. The fuck out of here.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of took that as a sign, like, it's been in the back of my mind. It's been nagging at me for some time. And to be honest, like, I will say, growing up, my dad was like, "Oh, you won't last working for someone else." And I always thought he was nuts for telling me that. And I was a kid, like I was probably 12 or 13 when he would say that, because I had very specific opinions. I had very strong. I had a very strong sense of self. I will say, I was always open to have conversations with people. But like, if you asked me, like, how do you want to see this? Like, I could just articulate it straight away.
right.
So I never really understood that. And I started to kind of in that sort of late Chevrolet Performance, GM Defense time period, I think. And I also started realizing that, well, I've got 12 years of experience in this industry. What can I do with that? What do I love? Like, what excites me the most about, just taking titles and roles and all of that, roles and responsibilities out of it. And I always felt like at GM, there's only so much you can do for the whole industry. And I think the GM design, the Chevy SEMA Design Awards was one great example of that. But with so many challenges facing the industry now, and I had a vision that was just much bigger than anything I could do from a seat at GM. So after leaving, I started my consulting business, Ardent Strategies, which Ardent is another way of saying that you're hyper passionate about something. And that was kind of an easy decision to come to a name that I could speak to.
Does that got an Instagram?
It does.
Ardent Strategies.
Yeah, it's Ardent Strategies.
Right. For the people, so just like a voluntary compensation pack, it's just Ardent Strategies on Instagram.
If I could clear that up, I'm curious what the fucking package is.
It's a severance package, and you decided to take it.
Dude, I get the fact that you're
It's voluntary.
Yeah. What do they give you? Like,
Money.
A new car.
Right, you're fucking like if you told me you're leaving, I'd be like, dude, it's been fucking great, man.
Yeah, but
I
GM saying, hey, we're instead of us
appreciate it.
firing a bunch of people, anybody that wants to leave, we're going to give you a package to leave.
What is the package?
Well, it's like a small package.
It's a bottle of whiskey.
It's a medium
Okay.
to small.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You want to know how much you got paid?
I mean, they cook these things up. I want to know, like,
Right.
they're trying to make it enticing for you to say, all right, get it.
Yeah, I'm
outta
sure
here.
they're
It's been
probably
great.
paying off to
Yeah.
to eliminate at the end of the stock price. I will say,
It was enough for me to go and like travel around the world, going to Formula One races.
There you
for
go.
A few
so
months.
it's,
And that's
so
what
it's a
I need.
medium to large
Medium
size
to
package.
large size.
Right? It's
It's significant, right?
right. I mean, it's a big package.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bigger package than I thought. You said something about your earlier. Your dad said you could never work for anybody, right? And I assume that's headstrong, got a lot of ideas. Something I picked up when we were talking about budgeting cuts, and I wanted to bring it up, but I didn't want to derail you. Now we're derailed.
I get derailed very easily.
Yeah,
If you couldn't.
no, we all. This is a derailing box. When we talked about the budget cuts and GM and stuff, my takeaway when you were like, well, it's nothing we did wrong. There's a different directive, and you moved into other stuff. My takeaway instantly right there is that only is said by somebody that grew up with parents like yours, that you've learned all of that through the way. Because anybody else, like first generation coming in there and be like, you know what? A fucking new person comes in, they're fucking stupid. They don't see the direction. They don't see what we were doing. They don't see the head ground we were making. We were doing this, blah, blah, and you disagree. But you'd learn so much, whether you thought you did or you didn't. Like that whole answer that you just said right there it only comes from a second generation working for General Motors or any corporation, and realizing that it doesn't matter how headstrong you are.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how many ideas you've got. It's a big fucking team, and it's a big ship. Like that's that's
Don't
so.
get me wrong. I certainly had the and my former boss there, Kara Brodebeck, who is an absolute rock star, and I continue to learn from her still. We're great friends, and she's an absolute rock star, an incredible leader. And she and I would just have these heart to hearts sometimes and be like, all right, we need another, whatever from your PR budget, your marketing budget. You need to cut your marketing fleet by this many. And we would certainly have those ones like, are you fucking kidding me? Like again, like how are we supposed to do? But we always found a way. We were very much like a small bit, like a startup, like a small business in this large corporation. And we did have, for all intents and purposes, like we had a pretty solid amount of autonomy for how we wanted to market our product, how we wanted to tell our stories. For that, I'm very grateful, because at the end of the day, there are still a lot of car people at GM, car guys. Yeah.
Apologies for the derailment.
No, that was important. And I appreciate you picking up on that, because it is like in the moment you get really frustrated, but you kind of let that settle down for a minute, and you do recognize, like, at the end of the day, it's always, sometimes everything you've got it just isn't enough, and it's just not right. And you're not going to fix it. So you can either dwell on it, or you can keep moving forward. And I think that's the other thing I've tried, kind of especially in this like new chapter in my life, is to always make sure I'm moving forward. And if I get stuck on something, I don't ever let myself be stuck on something for too long. And so, starting.
You take an enormous package, right? The biggest package, travel the world, and you start Ardent.
I wasn't that senior.
Right? You start Ardent, right? And you, as a consultant, now we're back on track. See?
Circle it back.
Circle back.
Yeah. So, so starting that was really reinvigorating for me, because I for the first time got to create my own brand and create my own story. And I think the other thing about marketing that drew me in was it was the closest I would ever get to being a creative, being able to work with the photographers and empowering like true creatives to do what they do best, and leveraging their vision and their passion to tell our stories at Chevrolet Performance and really anywhere. That's what I love about that. That's my favorite part of marketing and comms, and finding creative ways to like really put the words on paper in a compelling way. So, I've worked with a few different aftermarket companies since I started Ardent, but my biggest role right now is as marketing director of a company called Quadlock for their North American division. So I got
North American. Where are they based out of?
So they are based in Melbourne, Australia. Oh
my goodness.
And
things are starting to add up.
We think we do burnouts really well here.
Oh,
it's a different game.
That's next level.
They got bigger blowers and bigger wheels.
Yes.
And shorter
lower
wheelbase.
profile.
Shorter wheelbase.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
Did you go to school in Australia by any chance?
I did not.
Okay, I was just thrown off because you kept referring to going to university.
I've been trained.
Okay.
Perhaps.
Yeah, that's good.
You didn't pick up on that one earlier?
Yeah.
I picked up on it.
She's very well spoken.
I didn't know
just
that was a
figured
northern
she's, like,
thing.
smarter than us. And I'm like, it's very eloquent the way
No,
she says
I went to Oakland University in Michigan because
that's how we talk.
Yeah.
Say it like that.
Yeah. I mean, I went to OU. Well, first I went to State.
Josh should be more like, I got a GED. Fucking couple 3, 4, 5 years. I don't know, whatever. After fucking high school.
I just didn't want to
How
share.
many kilometers did you have to drive there to get to the Oakland University?
I'm not as good. I'm still working on
many
kilometers,
liters
but I can do
Petrol.
Celsius and Fahrenheit. I can switch back and forth really easily.
I kind of like this off-camera thing. I mean, it's actually kind of good.
He can't defend himself.
I know.
No, he cannot. He doesn't know Fahrenheit though, even though he lives here.
He needs a fill up.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm bilingual when it comes to temperature. I'm proud of. But yeah, so I've known the Quadlock guys for a bit, and long story semi-short, through relationships and connections we have with Formula One, specifically McLaren and Oscar Piastri, who is having an absolute ripper of a year. We're very proud.
Hell yeah.
Solid connection.
Yeah. So got connected with the quadlock guys, and the first thing that grabbed me about them is their business model is marketing focused on enthusiasts. It's a case-based premium smartphone mounting solution for phones and action cameras as well.
Yeah,
You know,
I know it.
The little. I've never used it, but everybody I
No,
hear,
it's good. Yeah,
they say it's really, really
I've
good.
seen it.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
I mean, like when I first held the product in my hands, I was like, you just don't expect that from
Australia.
something
I'm just sorry. I'm just.
Nicely done.
You opened it up. You opened it up. I found.
They
We
make
can
some-
edit that
they
out.
make some
I
nice-
just.
they make some nice shit over
I
there.
know they do. And it's just
Well,
a
I guess
shot.
that's kind of like, and I can touch on that later too, but like you don't expect that reaction from a phone mounting solution. But what captivated me about them is how powerful and enthusiast oriented their brand is. And they really built the company in the cycling and motorcycling kind of verticals, and have branched out into automotive from there. And one of the first things that popped into my mind in terms of like new business and growing the business in the States was like the classic car market. Like when I'm driving my Monte Carlo, like I'm either chucking my phone on the dash or like putting it on the trans tunnel, navigating to whatever, I remember very clearly navigating to Bob Lutz's like career recognition event at Willow Springs or Willow Run Airport in Michigan. And it was like
Willow Run.
Willow Run.
That's where the Novas were built.
And they had a B-17. I almost cried when I don't cry when I get pulled over by police, but I will cry in the presence of a B-17. And
Really?
I won't actually, but it's
But
like,
I
it's
get
very
you.
emotional.
Does something.
Yeah. So, driving out there, and it was just constantly falling off, and it was like 94,000 degrees Celsius that day. And it was just not fun. But I guess thinking about like, obviously we didn't have cell phones back in the day.
Where did they put cell phones in the 60s and 70s? Like, there's no place to put them in those cars.
Phil,
I don't get it.
Phil in the 90s just took sheet metal screws and zipped his cellular one flip phone into the side of his
There's a lot
70
of zip
Challenger
ties.
TA console.
No, we did not.
100%.
Got her done.
Hell
Yeah, fucking just big old brick phone right in the side of the center console.
Listen
But
to
you,
Biggie.
you keep talking about
Quadlock wasn't around back
right.
then. I
You
had
keep
no
talking
other
about
option.
first gen Camaros. Some GM designer was a time traveler, because in a 68, 69 Camaro, the center console,
That's where your seatbelts go.
where the seatbelts go, perfectly fits an iPhone. An iPhone sits vertically right in there.
Yes. I have the Sparco Pro 2000 racing seats, and my phone does fit in between like the seat cushion.
wedge
and
it in there.
Yeah, I just wedge it in there. And it's
Not great for navigation.
Not great.
But it's there.
Yeah.
It doesn't go flying
That's
around.
the job. Yeah.
I feel like that's a product that needs a really good storytelling side, because generally it's like Amazon lower level kind of stuff for cell phone holders, and this is more of a premium brand and showing off to the enthusiast. You probably can build a hell of a market by showing the usage of it.
Yes, and they already have like solely built on. I mean, the product isn't. Sorry, I keep hitting this.
It's fine. You can hit
I'm
it.
Italian. I talk with my hands.
No problem.
But they've really built the company has become successful truly because of the way the brand storytelling and the brand that they've built in Australia that they have also then built in the U.S. primarily in the power sports sector and growing very quickly in the automotive sector. So, one of the missions we have now is, in one of the ways that we are expanding in the U.S. is specific in the enthusiast, the classic car market. So, I'll be attending SEMA to kind of evaluate and plan for our first activation next year.
It's good.
And so that has, not just, it satisfies a lot of things for me working with Quadlock because it challenges me to think about different sectors that I'm not as familiar with. Like, I mean, I've worked with power sports through automotive, but really getting deep into that market, motorcycles, UTVs, side-by-sides, snowmobiles, things like that. And then the like mountain biking market. Mountain biking and overlanding goes so well together. And then also being able to go down the path of that I'm most familiar with, which is the enthusiast car market, classic car space. Yeah.
Can you get your hand on some Quadlock product?
No.
I just want a single mount. I'm thinking. No, I'm not. I'm talking about. I think we need to do an activation for the party this year at SEMA.
All right, what are you thinking?
The 850th person through the door.
Yeah.
Gets
what do they get?
Gets 10% off quadlock.
What a deal!
Yeah.
Man, you're selling
what's
this,
the
you're
what
selling
do y'all
this party hard.
What's the Australian dollar?
It's like 65% of the US dollar.
Is it?
Yeah. But we have
Everything's just a little less than. I got to stop right now. I'm gonna look into the camera right here. I apologize to all of our Australian fans. We've got a huge following in Australia, right? And they're very active. They always DM us, lots of interaction.
Got an email from Cam saying there's definitely more than 6 guys out there.
Well, there's a shit ton coming to the party, right? So here we're talking like 5 days away from me being face to face with all these Australians that I've been talking shit about right now. So I apologize, right? And
dude, some of those
sometimes I get out ahead of my
some of those
skis.
guys are probably out in the fucking bush, like they're trained. They'll whoop your ass,
Dude.
Like
I just said, sometimes you're a little bit of a keyboard warrior, right? You get behind, you get in this, get in this. Yeah, I'm not gonna walk it back like Florida Georgia line, but I apologize, right?
it's a formal apology.
Yeah, if you weren't here, I wouldn't even get this salty. It's just so fun to fuck with somebody that can't do anything about it.
I'm an Australia fan, right? Because when you look at like the UK,
it's a weird thing to be.
Well, I feel like they've always got like a little chip. They've always got like a little chip on their shoulder, right? Like that they're just a little bit better than us.
Yeah.
But like you look at like
They are.
Australian dudes, like they generally, I feel like they are. Like honestly, they're just like a little bit better.
They gotta fight kangaroos daily.
Well, yeah,
daily.
I will tell you,
They hate America. We're so fucking stupid. The things that we say about that country.
Helping it along so much.
We're dumb
I've only
Yankees
seen
to them.
one wild kangaroo in all of my time in Australia, and I've probably spent I probably spend. I'm trying to think now, like 4 months total.
Really?
Out of the year for the past 5-6 years.
I think kangaroo is more of a mascot thing. I don't think there's a lot of them down there.
I mean, I think I'm just not going to the
right.
right. I think I'm just not lucky. I've never seen a koala in the wild. I've only seen one kangaroo.
Josh has a pet koala. we were just talking about koalas the other day. Josh has koala knowledge.
No, panda.
Pandas.
We were talking about pandas. We're talking about how much the U.S. is
Gotcha.
paying China for pandas.
Yeah. That's what comes
tonight.
into my mind every time I see on Instagram.
Had a
It's
rough
like,
day.
at this zoo.
You know how much we're paying for those?
Please don't tell me.
Millions. Millions of dollars.
They've been gone for the last year, right? So China took them all back.
Yeah.
China owns all pandas, no matter where they are.
That doesn't surprise me.
So if it's any zoo, they own it, right? So they took them all back, and we just renegotiated. There's 3 of them that
The panda contract.
The panda contract. So there's 3 that went to the Smithsonian, and they haven't disclosed the details of this contract. But the last contract was $10 million per panda per year that it was in. No, I'm sorry, $1 million per panda per year, and it's a 10-year contract.
And
How much horsepower?
It's $30 million for 3 pandas in the Smithsonian.
I just think of everything in horsepower dollars.
Dude, we could put it in 4K. Just do it, live stream it. Put it somewhere else.
Has anybody gotten up close and personal with one to see if it's like a Teddy Ruxpin?
You don't think it's real?
Yeah, like if you open up,
there's a little
Velcro.
Dude, there was just
there's a little dude inside of
a
it.
little Velcro pouch, and there's like a VCR. Or some electronics.
He's smoking a cigarette backwards.
It's an unusual little creature. Is all I'm saying.
There's just an Instagram post where they
How
got
the
caught.
hell
They
did we
painted-
get to here?
They painted a dog to look like a panda and put it
I
in
saw
one of the
that.
exhibits.
Really? This is nuts. The world we're living in.
Right, so let's bring it back.
There's gonna be so much
Well,
editing in this one.
So,
Could be a new record.
let it run. Let it roll, Elia.
So
let it
the United
run.
We've still
States-
got some left.
The United
Yeah, we
States
gotta
spends
get
a
it.
lot of money on pandas.
Yes.
And then back to.
So you haven't
you
seen.
ever fuck with koala yummies?
What's that?
Oh, fucking hey. Dude.
Is this another snack?
That's
that I
another-
know
it's
about?
an
I fucking
Australian
love a
snack.
snack. Like you don't.
A koala yummy?
I don't.
Oh my god!
But a
that
Tim
is-
Tam.
like
If you had a
little-
Tim Tam.
I had those. Those were
Somebody
pretty good.
sent us. Who was it?
But you
that
have you had
sent
the
us-
dark,
Cam
chocolate.
Yeah, it was
Hustling.
Cam
Oh, yeah, that's
from.
right.
Yeah, he sent us. There was some good stuff in there. They do the wafer and chocolate thing. They can do.
Yeah, they can make a
I
chocolate.
tell you, Vegemite, keep it.
No, I
Keep
love
it.
it. I spread that
What?
shit on my toast like
Do you
peanut
really?
butter. Yeah.
But the koala
I'm-
yummy is a total
Leave,
package.
dude, leave our
Australians
women
cringe when
alone. Really? You're fucking seriously.
The koala yummy is a total package. It's the mouthfeel. It's the texture. It's a little cookie shaped
You
like.
spent a lot of time evaluating.
Oh,
this.
yeah.
Tell me more.
So
Because I love snacks.
it's packaged well. First of all, right? It comes in this little like octagon package with little koalas on it. You open it up and it is a koala shaped little cookie. Right? It's about that big.
But is there
It's
chocolate
like
involved?
a big
That's
gummy
very
bear
important.
size. Yes. So it's
Okay.
a cookie outer shell and it's lined with chocolate, but it's hollow. Right? So it's a total package. You get that little pop when you put it in your mouth. It's delicious.
I'm gonna tell you, Jeremy's a snack guy. Phil is as well, right? Phil generally plays around in the fruity world, right? For the most part.
I'm out
right?
on the fruit
Nothing bad, but it's Phil.
Sounded bad.
Of the two of us.
Well, not that way. So Phil dabbles in two arenas, right? And that is jerky, right? And licorice.
Oh.
That's generally what
You
you'll
and my
find.
dad can talk about licorice all day.
Australian
Stay
licorice.
away
Right.
from me with the licorice.
They dominate
now.
the licorice game.
They do.
He's got a little explorer in him, right? So Jeremy likes to Jeremy wants to be the one that goes
Like
into
a trendsetter.
He wants to go.
I want to find the next.
No, he wants to be he's Christopher Columbus. He wants to go in and be like, guess what I found? I found land on the other side of that water.
Dude, I do. I went into like the Polish grocery
Yes,
stores
I
and
te-
stuff
I
and
know-
found
I
all
know
this
you.
fucking candy.
I'm just like that with fries. Like,
Fries?
give me your best French fries just
Okay.
anywhere. Like, I'm always on a quest. It's never ending.
Okay.
Jeremy's always going to go with. It's generally a triad, right? It's a trinity. It's a three-way. It's going to be a go-to,
But
and
is
that's
it a fruity trinity?
well, depending on the day. And I get this. I agree with him. Sometimes it's a fruity, sometimes it's a chocolate. It just depends on the day. It depends on the time. And then there's got to be a chip, right?
Yeah.
He has to have a salty, crunchy snack. It has to be whatever it is. Now there will also be a wild card, something that
Always
you
wild
just
card.
didn't see. Now,
what other category
that-
other than chocolate?
well, the
Crisp-
wild card,
salty,
the
crispy.
wild card could be in one of the first two categories, or it could be a third by itself. A wild card could be a coconut-covered, deep-fried, beef-filled apple. Like, you have no idea. A wild card could be
wild card.
Well,
something
here,
that's
I tried buying the tahine-covered gummy bears.
yeah. That's
Yeah,
you shouldn't.
No, I know. That was horrible.
Yeah, it sounded.
You know what that is? That's like that
Yeah.
chili lime
I put it's good
seasoning.
on eggs.
It's great on
believe it
eggs.
or not,
Terrible
yeah.
on gummy bears.
But there's you'll see. We do a lot of road trips, right? We do either road tours with customers and shop. We also do a lot of run into shows and stuff. So there's always that. I'll get something, or I'll pump gas, or I'll be smoking a cigarette, and I can see the look on his face coming out, or he's doing a little bit of a high step. He's got a little bit of a strut, and I know that he's found something that may be banger, and it could be horrible, right? And that's just the way it is.
I just think about Hot Rod Power Tour with Chevrolet Performance and all of our photographers, and we would be in this long convoy of Chevrolet Performance marketing vehicles, and we'd roll up to gas stations, and like sometimes we'd hang out with some of the other companies and all their creators and everything, and it was always beef jerky and peanut M&Ms.
Oh, peanut
Those are
M&Ms.
those are the horsepower that gets
Peanut
you through
M&Ms.
Power Tour. And fun fact, for the Chevy SEMA Design Awards, we would shoot the cars overnight because we were like, booth photography blows. Like, nobody wants to look at booth photography on there.
Sure.
So that's kind of how that came about. And we got special passes to shoot overnight. But like, those dudes were that was all fueled by peanut M&Ms and jerky.
Little secret of the pros: Vienna sausages.
Yeah. We've got a good friend that basically survives on peanut M&Ms, Tim.
I mean, they're delicious though.
Yeah, Tim. I'm not a peanut M&M
I
guy.
like a pretzel M&M too.
I like
They're a bit of a sleeper.
Yeah.
I like a peanut M&M
butter.
or a peanut butter M&M. There's also a caramel M&M.
No, I'm out.
But a
on all
peanut
that.
butter M&M. I mean, a peanut M&M
Dude,
is
Can
old
I tell you
school.
something?
Yeah.
I want to tell you something.
Vienna
Well,
sausages.
I told you about this. When Josh is talking about the wild cards, here we go. Okay. I've been taking my son. We go up to Lake Geneva. We're going to this motocross track all the time. Drive through this small little
I
town.
told you to buckle your seatbelt.
Yeah.
I told you to
Every
get
I'm ready.
ready.
Bring it.
And this is
great.
an endorsement, right? It's a what is it?
It's a shout out.
It's a shout out.
Rap horn out.
So you drive through this tiny little town every time, Richmond. It's like, a one stop sign, 4 little corners, and there's nothing in it but a little restaurant, little ice cream shop. And then there's this little like Victorian-looking house that there's a sign in the window that says Anderson's Candy Shop. Been driving by it for like 3-4 times.
Let's see what old man Anderson's
Fifth
got.
time I decide, I'm like, what the fuck's going on with Anderson's over here, right? So, which takes me back to, was it Adam Sandler's stand-up with the fat guy Anderson, FGA? Yeah. So, fat guy Anderson. So it clicked. I'm like, we got to go into Anderson's. Right. So we stop, you go in, and I'm looking around. It's kind of odd. It feels like very touristy. So I'm getting ready to leave because I get overwhelmed because I can't figure out what I want. And so that gets uncomfortable.
That's another thing about him. It's difficult. If it's hard to make a decision.
I can relate to that.
Right. If it's weird, if it's uncomfortable, if I've got to ask somebody, I'm like, I clam up.
Or if there's 2 people in line.
Yeah. So all of a sudden, we're getting ready to
done.
leave. So this was great because this was a life lesson for my son. We talk about this a lot now. We're getting ready to leave, and there's this nice young man, this young kid. He's probably 15, 16 years old. And he stops me. He says, can I help you? Let me tell you a little bit about Anderson's. We've been around for 120 years in the same location, and going on and on. I'm like, oh, he's captured me now, right? So they make their own candy bars. They're fucking banger candy bars. This candy bar dunks on any candy bar you've ever had in your life.
So because he came to you and made you feel comfortable, you said, I'll hang in there.
It was salesmanship, right? So this is a lesson. This is advice. He kind of, he just broke the barriers, right? Brought it down. Sold me, I think I spent $75 on candy bars. Honest to God. Not even fucking kidding. They're expensive little candy bars, but they make them there themselves. It's great.
How much candy bars were left on that ride home with between you and Wyatt?
None.
Probably 2.
I was gonna say.
What was the best one? Like, what made them so good?
I went with, because I'm like, I'm trying to be like somewhat health conscious. I just got dark chocolate. I got the straight dark.
That's what I would do as well. But yeah.
But he goes for everything. He got the marshmallow filled one, the caramel filled one. He got the s'mores one, straight chocolate. Yeah, he got it all, and he devoured them.
Killed it.
So they were all the best.
I'm telling you what, I've been all over to every truck stop in America. It's fucking gold. It literally is gold. They've been around 120 years. How do you make it 120 years?
You don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By making your own chocolate.
That's right. You make it right there in a house in Richmond, Illinois.
Right next to right next to all the back stock of cigarettes and
Exactly.
I have no idea where we're
where do we go from here?
I'm usually decent at this. All right. It's quadlock. Back to quadlock, right?
To quadlock.
So we derailed it at quadlock. So you're going to SEMA, you're scouting, you're trying to prepare for the first activation, right?
yes.
What kind of market share does quadlock have in Australia?
They pretty much own there's really no competition there's some little stuff in Oz, but it's a much smaller market than the US, of course. And then, you come here, it's 10x the opportunity and 10x the competition. So, I've been with the company since April, and we've been just kind of building our strategy to how do we 10x then our marketing strategy and our brand strategy, and taking what has worked in Australia, but putting a North American lens on it, because we've continued to kind of identify some differences between the two markets. But I think the thing at our core, and the reason again, why they captivated me, and that opportunity captivated me so much, is their commitment to enthusiasts, their commitment to brand first, brand storytelling first. Let's build a community. Let's not build a customer base. And I think, when you've got a product like a phone mount, it's not the sexiest thing in the world. It's not selling. Right. You're not selling superchargers. You're not selling.
It's a very useful product.
You're not selling manual cutouts that you have to unbolt.
Right.
Community over customer base so many people don't get that.
Yeah.
So many people don't even understand it, and then the people that try to understand it say it and don't know how to do it.
Right.
That's a completely different level of getting it out in front and making sales happen is one thing.
Yeah.
Community and a club and something you got to be a part of, and you want to consume the things that brand that you're so in love with does.
Yeah.
And that you're not even in the mood for a hat, but if it's quadlock and you love them so much, you're going to buy a hat.
Yeah.
That's a different level. Yeah.
I'll have to get you guys some of our we've just started doing merch, because that is kind of the number one thing we get asked for by our sponsored athletes and our partners. So it's quadlock racing department, and it truly is designed to be, and it looks and feels like a product you want to wear, like hats you want to wear, like shirts
we'll
you
wear it out like in the public. We can't wear it on the podcast.
Yeah,
we get paid a shit ton of money to wear this stuff on the podcast.
You're wearing a Roadster Shop hat, dude.
But it's
Yeah, I know. I get paid pretty decent.
Pull up Quadlock's Instagram, can we? Throw it up there.
I think a good marketing.
I think you'll recognize you'll see some familiar faces.
A good marketing campaign. You put a
I'm very
phone-
proud of that. My Northern Lights.
We were going to talk about the Aurora
Low
Borealis.
key, I'm full on. I'm the biggest Aurora nerd you could.
I've never
possibly imagine.
really experienced it. Even I went to school briefly in Michigan, in Big Rapids, Michigan. And you know where that's at?
Yeah.
Okay, so everybody was raving about it. I like walk
She
outside.
said it like that's
Yeah, she's
dirt
looking,
bags.
Yeah. Yeah, she gave me a dirty look. She's like, "Oh, that explains a lot."
No.
That explains a lot.
She did say it like that. Oh.
Yeah, but
Mean
everybody
it.
was like raving about it. And you look outside, I'm like, I don't know, it didn't look like that.
No, but we can go back to the
Yeah, that's
Northern
pretty.
Lights. But you'll see some familiar names on there. I think another one you'll find interesting, and you can talk about. Well, he's actually a Kiwi. Is Shane Gisbergen, who's racing in NASCAR.
SVG.
Yeah, man.
He's fixing to bring it. You know who he's racing for?
It was a
Throwback to a couple episodes ago. Matt Swiderski. He's going
Really?
there. He's going to their team.
Trackhouse.
small
Yeah.
world. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he is an absolute monster on
He
the road course. Obviously,
Fucking
big,
destroyed here at Chicago.
Yeah, it's
Absolutely destroyed.
so gnarly. Yeah.
and
but
dude's
he's-
huge.
Yeah.
He's like
He's
6'3".
super tall. It's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah, very unusual for NASCAR, for race car drivers in general.
I don't even know what I'm looking. I'm here on the site.
Well,
I'm
click on the
it's a
trophy truck
bull-
is
bull
cool.
cut, dude. That's what you're
so that's Toby Price and Paul Wheel from PWR
Okay. All right.
that race our trophy truck, and they just won the Baja 400 and 500. I love off-road racing photography. It's so hard to watch as a spectator, although I think Matt Martelli and his guys at Unlimited have done an incredible job of really trying to make off-road racing a little more spectator friendly, but it's tough, but I think they do a wonderful job of
You
that.
just see it's so brief, right? What you get.
Yeah.
5 seconds of
I
The
think that
photography is kind of some of my favorite in the industry
if they
watching
could
that.
figure out a way, which it's near impossible, which is why it haven't been done in 50 years, to televise that sport, it would be a completely different animal.
Yeah.
But it's
It's
you're
still
so
niche
you're
too.
it's so niche, but it's spread out, and it's got there's something so cool about it, and I think that it would go a little. It's not going to go mainstream.
I think
it's not
if
going to
you
go
just-
football, but
if
it's
you did it strictly in car cam, because that's wild. To see how they react,
Yeah.
and the speed at which you're just hitting whoops and just massive obstacles. It's
if you could get down to like a 3 mile course, and do hot shot laps or something like that, I think you could make something out of it.
Yeah. He actually, of course, they're running our products, our action camera mounts and our automotive, our car mounts. And they've been running it since we started sponsoring them, and it just stays put in the car.
So it's not just cell phone stuff. It's mounts for
everything.
So there's the case, like a phone case mount.
Yeah.
For if you're, navigating or just any sort of performance driving, but there's also a great use for track day. So running, Track Addict or another track day application in your car for grid life cars.
Mm-hmm.
Great, perfect opportunity for us.
would have been great for Justin Hertel from Heatwave. He was on.
That was a great episode.
So
Yeah, he's a cool dude.
Yeah.
I like him a lot.
if he would have had that in the Spec Miata, he wouldn't have actually washed out and wrecked the damn car.
That's true.
We also look at we're starting to look at co-branding opportunities, and Heatwave is actually one of the first names that I threw in the hat.
Yeah, that's a great.
Yeah, they cool dude. Absolutely fucking cool dude.
I'm thinking quad lock right here with a cell phone on it, and if it can hold on through this podcast and just shit going everywhere, it sells itself.
But it's got to follow the topic, right?
Yeah.
That's where you would throw. That's where you throw it off because it'd go crazy.
Or somebody would.
What are you
hit it
trying to
with
say? We don't stay on topic.
Seldom.
Very rarely.
But I think you understand. Listen,
It's more all over the place.
we're
than a
not
trophy
real
truck
good
running
at this,
Baja.
right? But the secret is we're so bad. That's the secret,
Don't let that all out.
right? We cannot stay on
the
top.
Listeners can
I
really
think the only listeners we have is because it's probably the only podcast on air that doesn't have anything politics in it. That's probably it. That's probably the only.
At the risk of getting my ass completely beat, right, at SEMA. I think this is going to air after SEMA, so I'm fine. Fuck it. I think that we're only as popular as we are, and it's only Australian listeners. And I don't think it's listeners. I think this is like actual network television down in Australia. I think that's how backwoods everything is. That it's just like you turn on like NBC5 and it's just oil and whiskey. It's like look at these dumbasses from America.
It's like cable access from Wayne's World.
Yes, exactly. I'm kidding.
But the Australians can drink. Like,
they could drink us.
Nobody's damn business.
There's a couple of guys that we always run into. Used to be at Louisville Street Rod Nationals, and
Louisville's a great town.
There's some Aussie hot rodders that I won't even begin to try to hang with, drinking wise. They can put it down.
Really?
Yeah.
Do they sell beer in regular size cans, or are they just those Foster's fence posts?
No, it's all like.
Don't ever say Foster's to an Australian.
No?
Yeah, that's fucking propaganda. That's
You're.
Yeah.
Like,
Phil might be the one getting his ass beat.
I don't drink beer,
I innocently
so I can't
dropped
speak
one
to that,
name
but
brand.
That was the worst thing you could have said. I'm an Australia fan. I've said I went there for my honeymoon in
Did you really?
like 2009.
What part?
We flew into Sydney,
The main island.
From Sydney, we went to Queen.
Well, there's Tassie. That's like the sub
You're on
island.
fire, man.
The big one.
Yeah. From there, I went to Queensland,
Oh, Queensland.
and then from Queensland out to the Madeira Island. Do you know where that is? It's like a little island out there. But it's a beautiful country, man. I mean, I really enjoyed it. It was probably one of the greatest experiences.
Really?
It is some of the most incredible landscapes that I've ever seen. Like we drove out to a place in Bundalong outside of Melbourne one time, and like driving, I can't remember the name of the road, but it was like Black Diamond something, but the tree, like you look like you're on. And Star Wars people are going to cruise by because I think Tatooine is the one. Is that the one with the forest?
Yeah, you're good. I'm a Star Wars.
I was actually just at Summit Skywalker Ranch last weekend.
We were supposed to be there.
Why I was looking for you guys to be honest.
I know. Well, it's SEMA crunch.
Not enough hours in the day.
We got a couple irons in the fire.
Yoda was talking shit.
We got really.
Yeah. The Force is not with you.
I know. We got a couple irons in the fire.
Yeah.
I learned from a very influential person not too long ago. Joe Rogan said, being successful is learning when to say no. Mm-hmm. Right?
Absolutely.
And that's been our problem probably for the last year and a half was we were saying yes to too many things. We've got to focus on the stuff we got to focus on.
Absolutely.
And then we're going to get there. We're going to go to Pebble Beach next year. We're going to do some other things.
I keep saying that, but then I keep showing up at the Dream Cruise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got
It's a little more lowbrow, but it's good fun. You can't go street race in downtown Pontiac at the.
We got to do.
You got to do. Woodward.
I think part of the problem is we got to finish some of our damn projects for like personal projects, right?
Well, my dad's got 4 hot rods between the
projects.
two, between my mom and dad, so you can just drive one of theirs.
Our stuff's always like
on
just
record.
pending. If that was ready to rock,
Yeah.
go out and cruise.
Yeah, I've been just exhaust away for 2 years.
Yeah, you have. Yeah.
I'm one shift knob away from getting that Miata up and running.
Dude, that thing's ready.
Yeah, it is. You just need a battery.
Yeah, that's more of a Road America thing. I wouldn't take that through Woodward. Honestly, I wouldn't take it anywhere.
That's a big
But
track
if
car,
you're going to
big
take
track.
it somewhere, I would use the ridge line and pull it to Road America.
Yeah. The clutch,
Woodward is not really like for driving if you have a classic or something that gets really hot inside the cockpit or.
We got vintage air and everything.
I have vintage air in the Monte.
Shout out to vintage air.
Shout out
Yeah.
to Rick.
Yeah.
There's that.
I do have vintage air in the Monte, but I don't run it.
2.5.
But I love the system.
It's great.
It was a game changer. Like I fought tooth and nail like my inner demons to not put AC in that car, but the car never overheated. So shout out to Be Cool for a badass radiator that car that car never overheats ever. But I was overheating in the car, and then I put the vintage air unit in there. I try not to use it, just like
you feel it, so you've got to get out of that. Like you have that guilty conscience of using it from the old days. Right?
I feel like I'm getting weak.
When you set a car up right, like I'm totally different. Like I'd be the same way. All 4 windows down, never touch the AC. Right. Now it's all 4 windows up. I'll be sitting in line waiting for the award ceremony at Good Guys. AC's to the max.
I still don't. I don't have door panels on that car. I've got
my
interior is Dynamat.
180 degrees.
My interior is Dynamat, like the Louis Vuitton logo. It's like I've got the Dynamat monogram interior.
A little different brand.
I was always this is going way back, but on air condition, on vintage air or any AC, and then come from mini truck and sport compact and even in hot rods and stuff like that, shaved door handles, right? I've probably put in 2,000 door lock, popper kits, right? Auto lock and every brand that's out there.
What's your system? Like, how do you go about this? Is it zip ties and sheet metal screws, or how do you
way back in the day, it was Unistrut stuff, right? Or it was, so
Unistrut and just machine screws.
Yeah. But the thing is always like, in my mind, I had like an internal countdown, right? Every time you utilized it.
I know exactly how many times you have.
There's like, and then there'd be the times like you would like click, and like, well, fuck, I just wasted a time, right? And it was the same thing on air conditioning. It was always like,
it's like you wasted life in a video.
Right, and I'm gonna run the air conditioning like you'll be cruising, or we'd be at a show or something like that, and you're in awards, and you run that thing for an hour and a half, and you get back, you're like, oh man, that's an hour and a half you're never going to get back. And in your mind, it's like I've wasted an hour and a half of R134. It's like it's gone.
That's old school though.
But in your mind, it's like, well, shit, we just got through that long, so the clock is ticking.
The door pop. That's a funny comment because I totally get that.
It's like a countdown.
It's like a Pez dispenser.
It starts at 99, and every time you hit it,
eventually it's out.
Yeah,
right? That popper is going to just go down.
That's a weird, car builder, doing it kind of thing. And it goes that way with all kinds of stuff. Like when you install something, you're in your mind, you're just like, well, it's fucking perfect now. Never in your mind do you think it's going to be perfect forever.
No. Well, it's never perfect to begin with. Like, these projects, they're always projects.
Yeah.
You're going to make it better.
When I started building the Monte, I wanted desperately to chop the roof.
What year, Monty?
70.
Okay. That's a good looking car.
Thank you.
Chop the roof on a 70?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, nobody does it. I've seen one example of it.
That seems like it would be the star in a Wesley Snipes movie.
A
chopped roof 70 Monty.
Did you seen my car?
Yes.
Did your dad have any weigh in on that at all?
No, he was not allowed to work.
I've never studied the profile of that.
We don't work on that car. We don't work on cars together. He has a very different way of working on cars than I do.
Really?
Like, he gets very impatient with me.
Okay.
And I'm like, I need to do things the way I want to do. Like, we just have a different style, I think, is really. There's this Camaro before,
that's tough looking.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's fucking bad.
Yeah, you shouldn't chop that.
It just would look so much better. I can see
what you're saying. You could knock an inch out of that, and it would still look like it's in proportion.
Thank you.
Really? You think so?
Yeah.
Because all the glass is curved, it would have been an absolute nightmare. But
the roof's going uphill in it too.
Yeah.
I think it could be like a star in like Death Proof.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The other thing
there's look at that. Holy shit.
That's cool.
I haven't seen that. Sweet. Stop everything. Let's take a moment.
It's one of my favorites.
That's your mom and dad?
Yeah.
It's a beautiful dress.
Yeah, she got rid of it.
What a time. Really?
I'd rock the shit out of that
I bet you
now.
would.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
What was that? 88, 89?
88. Yeah.
That's a wild picture.
What is going... I apologize. We're going all over the place. I want to know... What's going through your fucking dad's head right now, standing, taking a picture in front of that?
He, like... I look at him like, do you realize... Like, because I see him in, like, Ratfink t-shirt mode in the garage, and I look at him, and I'm just like, how? And he'll have, like, there'll be a C8 in the driveway. I'm like, how does that come out of your brain? How does it come out of your brain?
Dude,
I don't know.
At the end,
I didn't realize that was there.
He likes to be at home making a bonfire with his tiki torches and a glass of TX, and hang. Like, the neighbors just show up. They come out of the woods. Like, they've got that kind of house.
I think we're doing in a very short time. We're not waiting. We're gonna do this thing, and it's going to be you and your dad. We're doing both.
Then I'm going to tell you to hold on.
It'd be great to see the dynamic.
That will be a ride.
That's fine. We're doing it. We're doing it as soon after SEMA as we possibly can.
I'd love to see the dynamic.
It's good fun. I've been told that we're very much the same, but we're different in a lot of ways too. So you'll see up there, that was actually at Custom Creations.
What's in the background there?
That's Firebird 2, I think it's 2 because there were 3 of them. They did a lot of work on.
Oh, you stepped the fucking rear rails in that?
Yeah, I had to. 12. Jesus. So I picked the only muscle car in that area that you can't mini tub like a normal mini tub. So I ended up having I rebuilt the frame rails like between those 2 body mounts.
Yeah.
Rebuilt it with steel 2x4s and brought it in as far inward as I could without having to shorten the axle.
Hell yeah.
So I went from having I think the maximum was like a 10.5 inch tire to a 13.5 inch tire.
That's badass. And it's a small diameter wheel too, right?
Yeah, they're 15s.
Okay, so it's like a Mickey Thompson or something on it?
They're actually, I went with M&H Race Master just to do something a little different. So they're
That's hard.
$390.
M&H is always more hardcore.
Yeah,
M&H is always more hardcore.
I like those big wheel studs sticking out too.
Thank you.
Open lugs.
Yeah, those. Well, so I built it legal to $999 an HRA spec.
Yeah.
Because I had lofty goals to drag race professionally as well.
What's the power in it right now?
I think it's probably pushing close to 6, probably mid 5s. It's an original.
That's some different
LS.
color hair right there.
Yeah.
A little bit of changes.
Yeah. Been through some phases in my life. That was also at Custom Creations where I used to work. Yeah. It's an original LS6 block out of a 70 Chevelle. This is probably one of my favorite videos. The first one.
You just gotta do that. You get out of it.
Yeah, like they dump before the axle. The car is just insanely loud. But it actually sounds good as opposed to my Camaro.
Well, it's got a big cam if it's making that kind of power.
Yeah, super lumpy. It's crazy. But the engine was a friend of my dad that had it was running 1,000 horsepower in a blown 69 Camaro Z28. I bought the short. He was going to do something different with his car, so I bought the short block, and it was an original LS6 out of a 70 Chevelle. Bored 40 over, and then I had some custom AFR heads built for it. They were the I'm not going to say because I can't remember exactly how many cc's it was, but they were like a large oval port head, and it was a brand new head at the time. So Edelbrock Victor Jr. or was a single plane intake, and then a quick fuel 950 carb.
Remember the airflow research ads back in the day?
It was like kind of like scientific.
Exactly. It was like,
they were 300 cc large oval port.
So scientific.
Yeah, and that's what I was like. That was to me like gold standard. I'm like, I can't afford a set of Alan Johnson racing heads. Maybe you
should have networked a little bit. You could have.
I was. Well, I didn't go to SEMA and talk about my car. I like truly went to SEMA when I was 19. Like, and I literally stopped at every booth, and I asked anyone that would give me the time of day or that had a few minutes to like tell me about their business. Like, what do they look for in team members? Like,
sure.
What's their mission statement? How do they tell their brand story and all of that? And like, that's really how I learned about the industry was.
See, if you did. I don't know how old were you when you started building that Monte Carlo?
I think that was the same year. I think I was 19.
At 19, 20. If you would have approached us, you definitely could have gotten a chassis. Because the thing that we never see is young builders that I can't remember the last time a young builder approached us to help them with something. It's always like some fucking con job, right? When they want something free. But I've never had a guy who's like truly passionate that shows up. That's like, I'm going to be somebody. Well, I'm going to set the world on fire. You got to.
You're going to take the calls now, because that's coming.
Shit. Yeah, I guess I didn't think about that. I mean, we'll be fucking selective with it.
Yeah, 100%. Right?
But for the right guy, I mean,
what's the fastest ET you've been in that?
I've actually not taken it to the track yet.
Really?
Yeah. I don't drive it very much. When I eventually, I went around telling people I'm going to have this car done in a year.
Yeah.
It's a kiss of death.
Yeah. Yeah, it was real embarrassing because like 6 or 7 years later, I started it for the first time, and it was like I was working full time for GM, and like I just didn't have the time to take it to the track, and the only time I could drive it, it was like, oh, I'm gonna go cruise Woodward, I'm gonna go drive around, I'm gonna take it here to this car show or whatever, and like I still want to run it. I'm dying to know what it will run down the quarter.
They like low 12s. Upper 11s.
Yeah,
high 11s.
it's not crazy fast, but it's fast enough.
It's a fast street car.
Yeah, and it's so much fun to just drive up and down Woodward. Like I know it sounds very like mundane, but like even on here's another pro tip on Woodward Dream Cruise. The best time to go is the 2 weeks prior.
Really?
Because it's fucking nuts out there.
Yeah.
But it's not so busy that you're like inching forward as you're driving. So there's a lot more action. It's a lot more kind of lively on the weekends, and the week of the Dream Cruise, every single day, Sunday, like the actual day is the Saturday, but the days leading up is just banging out there. It's so crazy.
We got one quick topic to get into, and then we're going to get into standard questions.
Okay.
But I've got to go to the little boys' room. So we're going to take a little fast break, and I'm sure there's probably somebody else that's going to use the restroom. I hope I set your expectations at the appropriate low level for this podcast.
You did.
All right.
Hopefully I'm living up to the expectations.
Yeah, you classed it up a little bit.
Yeah, you absolutely did.
Every once in a while, we bring in a guest to just elevate the podcast.
Yeah.
As long as it's still entertaining for the viewers.
To all the Aussies out there, again, I'm sorry. If you're still listening, I apologize. Yep. See? Fellow Aussies saying it's okay.
Who is the dude? Is it Sean Ryan? He's got the podcast.
Yeah.
Did you see he had an actual podcast? It was like 3 minutes long that issued a formal apology for misinformation.
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, he aired it as a separate podcast. You might have to do that. A separate podcast, 3 to 5 minutes of just Josh apologizing. Yeah.
To just the Aussies or everybody?
I'd start with the
I'd
Aussies.
go blanket statement. Just to get across the board.
To everybody that's ever listened.
I've only there's only two. Well, it's only been Florida Georgia Line that I've gone hard on, and just recently,
rightfully so,
just this one, and it's honestly it's your fault. It's Andrew's fault. That's off camera. That's got me a little punchy because it's funny to say something about Australia and watch his face.
Okay.
So I apologize, but it was for my own enjoyment. Now, you, on the other hand, you've got way more people to apologize than I do.
For what?
Well, I gave Track Addict a shout out on behalf of HP Tuners. So.
Something Jeremy's big on this podcast is shout outs.
Here we go.
Huge on the
I'm
shout
the
outs.
shout-out guy. I'm the shout
Big.
out guy. What do I have to apologize for?
Oh, wait. We lost. I lost you.
I think it's just you.
Yeah, Phil's bringing out his fucking buzzer. What do I have to apologize for? That's the fucking shout
That
out.
always makes me think of a Jason Derulo song.
This shout
when I
out
hear
alert.
that.
I will say the people you have pissed off are from Canada, right?
A little bit
So
closer.
that's
They're fighting bears up there.
yeah, but I would be more afraid of a prison island than I would be from.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they're gonna take a couple slap shots at me, dude.
Right.
Fucking
Yeah.
God.
You're right.
I don't know
I've
if you've
dumped those hockey pucks.
seen. I don't know if
Take a
you've
Tim
seen
Hortons
the
to the face.
defensemen that have been coming up in the NHL recently, but that
Canadians?
is like
Yeah.
old school
But-
like grind line.
But
hockey.
Bad Chad is not one of them. So
So I'm good.
yeah, you're good.
That's why I keep working out, dude. Like I wrote a check that I was worried my butt can't cash. I'm like,
Who
I hit the fucking gym, dude. Bad Chad's coming
this
for me.
this episode's gonna air right after SEMA, I think.
Good. That's good.
Now, when people are listening to this, it will have already happened. Who do you think takes an ass whooping at SEMA?
Between you and me,
Yeah.
you 100%.
Well,
We're just over here.
I don't even know
we're
why.
just gonna watch.
No, to
I
be
don't know
honest
why I
with you,
asked.
I
It'll
think,
be
I
me.
think I think Phil gives an ass whipping.
Oh.
It's the most underestimated, right?
well, it could be
And that's the
checking
way it
into the
always goes.
hotel.
That's
It
the
could
way-
be checking
Silent
into the
assassin.
hotel.
That's the way it always goes. It's like
Yes.
Josh is the first to like enter altercation.
Is there going to be a cage fight at the Roadster Shop party at the
it's
Best
possible.
on
Be a
RS
good
party
idea.
this
Quite
year?
possible.
That's a high possibility.
Yeah. Josh is always the quickest to altercation. I'm maybe like a little short fused, and Phil's calm, cool, and collected. But
Phil's the one that
You
everybody
don't want to piss off.
everybo's like just
a
in
while
a
to
good
get to that
mood,
line.
and all of a sudden, I
Whoa.
mean, the switch flips.
even I'm like, oh shit, I've never seen him.
It's gotten serious.
That's bad. This guy must have really fucked up.
All right, before we get to standard questions, I feel more comfortable knowing that we haven't gotten to like any of really good shit, because we're gonna run this. We're gonna run this back in 2 to 3 weeks. We're gonna get your dad out. We're gonna do both of you together, right? So before
Prepare yourselves. We need a lot more TX for that.
we'll
My dad's
have
a
it.
lightweight too, so
We'll get a handle.
We've had some serious drunks on here before. We've gotten some people very drunk.
Yeah.
Shout out to Mike Ring.
Shout out to Mike Ring and Zach from Z-Rods.
Zach from Z-Rod's the only guy that's...
Shout outs.
Zach's the only one that had to tap out.
Yeah, you're right.
But we love Zach.
Mike Ring hung in there.
Hey,
He did.
But again, he knew when it was time, right?
Yeah.
Peaced out
Yeah.
at just the right time.
Luckily, he brought friends so we could finish the podcast with somebody else. All right, so I'm gonna again. I've already stuck my foot in my mouth 100 times, so why not continue to do it? I'm gonna speak on something that I have no business speaking on, right? And I always preface it with everybody knows that what's about to come
With
out
all
of my
due
mouth is
respect.
with all due respect.
Okay.
You mentioned you have never really had to deal with the she's just a girl in the car world, right? What advice would you give to women trying to get into this industry? And phrasing this in a stupid way, I don't see the reason why people make such a push to be like, we're going to do an all-girl build or we're going to do an all-girl thing.
Yeah. Shut the fuck up with that shit. Just build the car.
Yeah.
I'm glad I didn't stick my foot in my mouth. So
Somebody had to.
I'm
Build
with
the
you on
fucking
that.
car.
Now, I will say, like, if I take an unbiased perspective on that, I think there are absolutely going to be women that feel more comfortable working with other women who are in the industry. Okay. My personal experience is I want to be treated like everybody else.
right.
I kind of already touched on that. It's like the most important thing, and I think overall is you've got to make sure you are aligning yourself with people that get you, that want to work with you and appreciate your passion. And there will always be someone, and they may be part of this industry, they may not be. And there are mentors and leaders that I respect and that I learn from that have nothing to do with the automotive industry that I've come across in my life. And I think that's also really open. It's really important to be open to that as well. But, no matter who you are, what industry, you are always going to have to work with people that are like, they just suck to be around. They're an asshole. They don't respect you. They say whatever it is. No matter what industry, what role, what position, what level you're at, there will always be someone that you just like, it's just oil and water, oil and whiskey.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to preface this in a way that's going to probably like 5% are going to understand, right? And that's fine. I'm fine with being an idiot. I grew up my dad was a preacher. His dad was a preacher. His brother was a preacher, right? I grew up in the church, right? And I grew up in private school. I grew up very sheltered from the outside world, right? Or they tried to shelter. So, but I always was, I remember growing up, becoming a teenager, and there was like Christian movies, right? Or there was Christian music, right? And there was the stigma of like, well, you just had to like it because it was a thing, but everybody kind of understood like, well, it wasn't really good.
Are you trying to portray yourself as Johnny Cash? You're like trying to set the stage for like,
No,
I
not at all.
I started singing like the church music.
No. Listen, follow along. And so, but it was always, I remember looking and like, why do we have to just accept it as bad because it's just for us? And I look at that and I know I'm a man, right? And I get that I can't speak on something that I never had to deal. But I look at, from the outside looking in, I look at the all women build or the all stuff. It's almost like there's this time where it's like, well, maybe it's not like the greatest build, but it's like all women did it.
Yeah.
Why can't you just come in and just like
build
it? It doesn't need to be all women. I know from us as an employer, and I know from other people that we deal with, nobody's ever talked about behind the scenes of like, I mean, good grief, like if we just quit having like women try to apply or something like that. Or if we could just find, more men or something. If you come in and do the job well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what race, what color, what fucking, sexual orientation. It doesn't matter. If you can do a damn good job, you can do a damn good job. And that's from fabrication. It's from everything.
Are you passionate, and are you committed to being the best at your craft?
And I think
that's
I think that the people like trying to enter the field, if they would have that mentality, instead of trying to say, I'm going to be the best woman fabricator, just be the best. Exactly.
That's the mentality. Yeah. There's a really interesting article that Forbes did with NHRA on why NHRA doesn't have a diversity program, and they touch on a lot of those points, and like it's, I guess, being around the industry, I didn't really think about that until I saw that. I was like, yeah, like, I mean, there were, of course, women that broke down, Shirley Muldowney, breaking down those barriers to enable that really early on.
There's a difference between the 70s and the 2024.
Yeah, it's a long time. But I'm, again, like, I don't ever want to speak on behalf of someone or force my personal life experiences on other people. And I have made, and I know we talked a lot about my dad in this, but like, I never saw him at the office unless we like had lunch together. And like, I made a very concerted effort and I know Peters is not it's not that uncommon of a last name, but within the halls of GM, like people associated that last name with my dad. Sure. And I went so far as to never introduce myself with my last name because I wanted there to be a very clear differentiation.
Stand on your own merit.
Yeah, and a lot of the fact that I worked in marketing and not in design helped a lot with that, and so I was able to achieve that for a lot. And then as we started to intersect with, some things with SEMA and some other things, Howard Power Tour, we were occasionally working together in our own capacities. But it was very important for me to separate those two parts of my life. And, people are very quick to say, well, you had access to all these. The mentors that I worked with, there are some that I met who were like longtime family friends that I met early on. But, I'll use Jim Campbell as a great example. And one of my favorite stories to tell people, and this goes back to if you're passionate about something and you find a mentor that recognizes your passion, they want to help you and they want to teach you and help you grow. So I was at the airport at the same gate as Jim Campbell, who is the vice president of performance vehicles, motorsports, accessories, and truck strategy at GM. A lot of titles.
Big deal.
Yeah. We were at the same gate waiting to depart our flights from SEMA. And I was like, this was my first or second SEMA, I think. And so I was still in university. In college. But
that's your fault. That's your fault.
But it was called Oakland University. That was technically what my
school. Let's say Oakland University there.
Yeah. Okay.
I went to school. OU. OU is
OU. Yeah. So, and I sat there and I'm like, okay, well, I can sit here and just like dream of what my career could look like, or I could go ask Jim if he has a few minutes to talk, if he'd be willing to answer, talk with me about my ambitions to work in the business and essentially work for him, which I went on to do. And I very politely asked him, I mean, nobody likes to be bothered at the airport, but I asked him if he's like, yeah, let's go grab a coffee. And I was completely floored. And I took my own, like, I was proactive enough, and I gathered myself and tried not to be, nervous or afraid to ask him. And he very kindly, we sat down and had a coffee at the airport, post SEMA, everybody's exhausted and whatnot. And he very kindly answered. I mean, I proceeded to like ask him 20 million questions about, what do I need to do? What does it take? What are you looking for? What are your priorities? What are your business goals? To learn about as much as I could from the industry, from one of the greatest industry leaders. So it's really taking that initiative, and like, that's not something that anyone scheduled for me or introduced me to. Like that had to be on me to make those connections and build those relationships. Same goes with SEMA, how the first few years before I actually was, like planning the show for GM with my team, I had to go build those relationships all on my own. But that was really my favorite part. And the more I did it, the more I loved it. So that I would say is another thing is you've got to find people that can be your anchor and your advisors, your mentors. And that's on you. That's no one's responsibility.
Well, to that point, how many people do you think are out there that are, say, women or some other diversity or some other, segmented group that aren't taking the initiative, right? And it's no fault, but aren't taking the initiative and are now projecting the fact that nobody's noticed them as a bias, right? Like,
yeah,
I get that, everybody wants to be noticed.
Yeah.
We talk about it all the time. It's been probably in the last 3 episodes, we said the same thing over time. It's the right place at the right time. To be at the right place at the right time, you got to be a lot of right places, right? You got to be a lot of places. It's the same thing about going up and taking the initiative to it. Now, if you would have said, you're a woman, I don't want to talk to you, then that's something you can bitch about.
Completely different.
Right?
Completely
that's a
different.
completely different thing.
Yeah.
But if you sat there by your lonesome, right, and never made the initiative to, and he didn't say anything to you, you can't be like, well, I guess he didn't talk to me because I'm a woman.
I had an experience recently with a young kid. He was maybe 13, 14. I think he said he was 14. I was out on Woodward during the Dream Cruise. I had my Monte and I was out there. I was just talking to people about my car or whatever. And he came up and he was just circling my car. And eventually, I could tell he's really nervous. I was like, hey, how are you? And he was like, and then as soon as I made that introduction, he was just like, we got into this very deep conversation about he's just bought his first car. He doesn't have his license yet. He's trying to learn it. I think it was I don't know, some kind of a first car, a couple grand. He's fixing it up. He's going to get it running. And he's looking at my car and he's asking questions. He's like, what do you do? How did you get into it? Asking me the same questions that I asked Jim Campbell at the time when I was 19. And he was like, what do I need to do? What do I need? How do I get into this business? And I was like, at 4. He's like, my sister drove me out here. My sister and her boyfriend drove me out so I could just go and look at the cars. And
oh shit.
And I was like, oh my gosh.
You don't hear about that shit.
You just never know how influential you may have been to that kid.
Well, he's like, what do I need to do? How do I work in this industry? And I said, you're doing the most important thing you could be doing right now. You came out to Woodward and you're talking to people. You're learning from people. Every single person you talk to, you learned something from, right? And he's like, yeah. And you had the initiative to come and look at my car and talk to me and ask me all these questions that you're asking me right now. That's exactly what you should be doing. And so immediately I got on the phone to Ben Kaminsky, who is the GM of SEMA Garage Detroit, one of the most talented and visionary engineers I've had the pleasure of working with. He was our induction engineer for Chevrolet Performance before he got that job with SEMA, which I was over the moon to hear that he got. But I called him up the next day and I was like, dude, let's brainstorm about this. Here in Metro Detroit, that kid is one of so many that has the passion, has the drive, has the vision, and just doesn't quite know where to go or what to do. And let's start working on how we can continue to encourage that kind of passion and that commitment for the industry, because that's how we protect this business for the future.
The fact that he's even interested in something like that, to ask his sister and boyfriend to take him out to something versus just consuming it on YouTube or consuming it on TikTok or something like that. That in and of itself is a step to say, take me out there. I want to see it in person.
Yeah. I went over to introduce myself to his sister and her boyfriend, and they're like, oh my gosh, he just loves cars so much.
Did they know who you were?
No. Well, I'm not that well known, and I actually don't get a chance to go out to Woodward as often as I used to, because I'm living in Chicago mostly full time, although I go back to Detroit so often my parents don't come and visit us here.
We're changing that.
Except for the Oil and Whiskey podcast.
Yep.
But yeah, so going out there and that same thing kind of continued to happen as throughout the weekend. And then it happened again just this past weekend in Northern California for the 000 magazine Turbo 50 event at Summit Skywalker Ranch, and we were out to dinner, and the kid that was serving us overheard us talking about industry stuff. I mean, we were talking about actually Throttle House, because we've just started working with Throttle House with Quadlock, and he was like, do you guys work for Throttle House? And I was like, no, but my company works with them. And he was like, oh, like I love their channel, blah, blah. So we get to talking, and he's telling us about his, I think it was an E36 BMW that he's bought and he's working on, and that's his track car, and he's into sport bikes as well. And like, he loves Quadlock, and, and he's like, I just graduated high school. Like I'm starting to learn about automotive photography. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like these are the types of, like, those are the most have been the most exciting moments in my career. Like since I left GM and started to kind of get back to that, like almost grassroots. And it's been so inspiring to be able to, and I've, and I guess it's 13 years in this industry, like professionally, but really my whole life. And that's still not a lot by the grand scheme of things when you look at some of the other heavyweights in this business that have, built SEMA, built the industry. But the fact that I can even offer this type of advice to people as I meet, and I'm like, all right, you got to go follow these photographers. And I told them about the Chevy SEMA Design Awards and how important photography was. I'm like, you got to go follow Justin Sessler and Andrew Link and these guys and learn about how they do their craft in the business. And it's so inspiring to still see that. So when I hear things about people like, oh, kids don't care about cars, they don't want to drive, and sure, that's true. But there are still some that do. And it's like, how do we get more of that? I'm
curious about that, because like we create this like notion of that the industry's dying, right? That there's,
I was going the same way.
You know what I mean? Like, but maybe it's not, maybe it's just, maybe it's us, right? That's not willing to like
exactly
cultivate it and grab those guys. And we had a guy in today, a resume came across, through my email, and it was like short and sweet. And it was, it's funny because he responded to just like a very vague, Indeed, job posting for a welder, like production welder. And I saw in his resume that it had some sort of Ohio street rod school, which I never knew there was any sort of like street rod program at any school in Ohio, but it obviously caught my eye.
Uno?
Uno, that was going to be my guess too.
No, it was,
Uno's got a great program.
Yeah. And he's from Grays Lake. So young kid, he graduated about a year ago from Grays Lake is literally like half a mile.
Next town over.
Yeah, it's close.
So I'm like, man, this is interesting. But like, if he graduated a year ago, it's like, why the hell didn't this kid reach out? And he's just kind of casually responded. Didn't send anything, nothing personal. It was just like fire off a resume. But I took a chance on it, and I sent him an email, and I said, hey man, just out of curiosity, I'm interested that you took a street rod course. I'm curious why you've never stopped by the Roadster shop. Like, you have one of the biggest hot rod shops like in the country that's within walking distance of your home, and you went to school to learn hot rod building, but yet you didn't like stop in to just like inquire. And so he responded back, and he said he had a couple other jobs out of state, and it's definitely something he's interested in. He's back home now. He stopped in, so I hooked him up with John York, and he walked through the shop, and John was wildly impressed with the kid. So he's hiring him. Like, we're going to bring him on, and that's a step in the right direction, right? It's a young kid. He's probably, I don't know, in his early 20s, lives at home, and we'll see what the kid's made of.
To bring it back full circle, right? And this is, when this happens, this is awesome, because this in the industry, like in the entertainment industry, this is like, they have a word for this. I don't know what the word for it is, but when you bring it back full circle, right? It's something. So we talked at the very beginning about
doing a donut.
Yeah, we'll call it. We're doing a donut. So at the very beginning, we talked about us as hot rod builders, talked about the big three as so far away, miles and miles and miles away, right? Unobtainable. They weren't paying attention to us. How would you ever even get their attention? Now we're talking about us as industry insiders, right? How do we do a better job of letting that waiter, that 14-year-old kid at Woodward, my 17-year-old, my 18-year-old, 17-year-old son, and the kids that are wanting to get into it, understand that it's probably more obtainable than they think, right? And that the mystique, we've all as an industry done such a good job at building our own brand, right? And all of the shows and all the marketing and stuff like that has continued to build the pedestal higher and higher and higher to make it seem like you're never going to get in, right?
Yeah.
And we're our own worst enemy on building our brands to a certain level, right? But then the waiter that you're meeting, trying to explain to me, like, dude, you don't understand. Like, we're all in these companies. We're trying to hire photographers. We're trying to hire social media managers. We're trying to hire fabricators. We're trying to do this. Just like be interested and send a resume. Yeah. What do we do on the industry level to say that?
Let me jump in again to bring this full circle.
Bring it back. Full circle. Do a donut. Do a donut.
Yeah. You mentioned something early on about that you've either got it or you don't, right? And that's what my dad taught me early on too. And that I truly believe that in this industry as a fabricator or, you know, a welder, a technician, there's certain things that can be taught, but you know, my thinking is that you truly either have it or you don't. It might take a little while to develop, but that's where that gets tough, right? Because some of those kids like just don't have it.
Well, don't have it for what?
It's a skill set, dude.
For skill set for what? What are you trying to hire him for?
A fabricator to build cars. We're a hot rod shop. What, a fucking musician? What the fuck? Where are you going with that?
Well, if you ask my dad what he did at GM, he said, I just played the music in the studio.
Okay.
But
That's what he'll tell you.
DJ.
There's 50 other directions in this industry that they could take.
Right.
So
I'm trying to staff up, man. Like we're talking about the roadster shop here, dude.
I understand that. But in the industry,
there's a lot of
in the industry, there's a lot of places because they can't weld to the level we need to weld for whatever car. Doesn't mean that they don't have a place in this industry.
Yeah, I see what you're getting at. I see what you're getting at. But it's like you have it, but it is difficult, and I don't think that that's everyone's experience that like I had when I was so young, being like, well, I'm still drawing my sons in the corner of the page. Like this is not going to be my calling.
Yep.
I don't think that's as common. I will say though, like, so my younger sister is 9 years younger. She's been in the culinary industry. Well, she started in pre-med. Then she went into, I think, like sound engineering and a bunch of other stuff. Then she realized she loves science. She loves cooking. Cooking is kind of science and chemistry. And so she went down the culinary route. And she's worked in multiple Michelin star restaurants in New York City. She's
sweet.
Like, we hated each other up until like 7 or 8 years ago. But now, like, I mean, she's truly like, she's my hero. Like, she's such an incredible human being. But now she's like, I think I might explore architecture.
What?
And yeah. Like,
wow.
Yeah. And so she's just kind of trying stuff.
Climb the mountain. What's find another mountain or what?
I mean, she is the family overachiever. So I'm just over here with talking about telling my hot rod story.
She's probably an example of somebody that's just got it, right? Like she'll go on to be an architect.
She
and
is,
probably
but I think
rock it out.
Probably. I mean, but quite honestly, the thing that she's just not afraid to try different things.
Sure.
And sometimes it has taken her a little bit, well, probably a year or so to really realize like, I'm ready for something new. The second she stops learning, the second she's bored and she needs something else to challenge her. And it can, I think, sometimes be difficult to realize when that's happening.
Difficult to employ.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But good for her. Like if that's what she enjoys.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think there is a little bit of that with the younger generation where they're more open to trying completely different new things. But like, I guess, and maybe part of this is kind of my GM heritage that like when I work for a company, like if I start working for a company, like I'm in it. Yep. My vision is a long-term career and partnership and relationship with the team, with the business, because I believe in it. And, that's how I've approached working with different clients. And in consulting, it ebbs and flows, and that's just the way that consulting is. And that's been a great thing for me to kind of go through all of that. But then, if, I guess maybe it's generational that that, the younger generation is more open and wants to change things up more. But it's a little bit different.
Well, we come to standard question time. Now, the problem is, just everything else about this episode,
We hit a lot of them early on.
If one of the standard questions is first car and a story about that car. You've already done it. Other question is favorite law enforcement interaction story.
Done it.
You've already done it.
That's a sign of a good podcast.
It's a sign of a great podcast
We organically work through
we
these
worked
things.
through them. One
best
of the other
piece of
ones,
advice on
best
there?
piece of advice is already on there as well.
Right out of the gate.
So we're gonna have to change it up a little bit.
You've been thinking about it? You got something?
No, I can think. I can
curveballs?
think on the fly. Besides Australia, which was one of the worst countries. I'm sorry.
I got an old one we'll bring back.
All right.
What was the one car that grabbed you, that got you into it? Well, no, we touched
Yeah,
on
she
that
hit
too.
that too.
Well, I can
Damn
tell
it.
you, but I can tell you another one.
She's hit it all.
Like another car that's always captivated me is the 1970 Mercury Cyclone GT.
Really?
Yeah.
It's an interesting
They're
one.
so ugly, but they're so badass, and I would love to just do the Monte Carlo treatment.
Are you a Quentin Tarantino fan?
Yeah,
Death Proof. Yeah.
I
the
mean, Death
Novas,
Proof-
the Novas.
Very old in my Instagram, you'll see a picture of the Monte, and I put some filter on it that the angle was like the Death Proof Nova.
I'm
And
getting
that was a
your style of cars and stuff like that. I'm getting Tarantino.
I've got
vibes.
one for you then. I've got a 65 Belvedere. That's
Nice.
right there with those. That fits because that to me screams Quentin Tarantino. Like
Yeah.
it looks flat black. You could put like a little skull and crossbones on the grill. It'd be.
If you could just put damn, what was the movie? I thought I was going to come out with it by the time I said it. What was the movie with him and George Clooney? That was my favorite Tarantino movie.
Desperate.
Where they go to the bar and they all turn into vampires.
That's
Oh,
Is it
no, it's From Dusk Till Dawn.
Dusk Till Dawn?
That's one of my favorite all-time
Yes.
movie scenes. Is the disco balls? Oh,
Yes, 100,000%.
Antonio
Yes.
Banderas
Yes.
was a bad.
That
motherfucker
movie.
back then.
yes.
That movie was amazing. From Dusk Till Dawn,
That was-
and it was Selma Hayek.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've
Didn't mind Selma Hayek in there either.
yeah.
She was a babe.
My
She
my
still
wife
is.
my wife doesn't listen to this, but she's always said I got a problem with Latin women and big time problem.
Selma
yeah.
Hayek.
Selma
At the
Hayek.
top.
Yeah.
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 That
Even-
takes me right back to when I was in university. And my
you went here in the U.S. of A.
So
How
she's
many
at-
kilometers ago was that?
Oh, you?
I don't know,
Oh,
too
you?
long. Too long. My knees remind me how long it was every day after my workout.
That's something you don't do. Off
You've got
camera.
You've got it out for me.
I know. This is the best thing.
Hey, it's funny because you weren't saying
He looks
that-
way better than me.
You weren't saying that about him the last few years.
He's way better
you?
looking than me. And he's the same age.
Do you want to touch on that?
You
Do you
can.
want me to bring that up?
Go ahead.
This is an interesting thing that there's I think Josh has a guilty conscience, or he's trying to project. You know how the Dems.
I'm going to see how you spin
All right, so
this
here's
through.
like-
All right, this
All right,
is going to
I'm
be
trying to think- I'm
this
trying
is
to think
Bob
through this,
Ross
right?
fucking painting here.
I don't want to get political, so we're
Yeah.
not going to go there.
All right.
But I'll just cut right to the chase. here.
Timestamp when we're going to have to edit this whole section?
No, we don't
out?
have to. We don't have to edit this.
Yeah, about right now.
So we met Andrew how long ago?
Oh, probably 6-7 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And immediately afterwards.
He can't talk. He has no mic, and he has
he
no
doesn't get to talk. We'll get into this maybe.
I can't wait because he's got his version of all the stories
Okay,
and I've got
so
my
we're like-
version.
Dude, this fucking dude's pretty cool. Fucking Australian accent is badass.
Yeah.
And then we formulated this whole
Wow.
Whole idea.
Wow.
Because we're like, I'll bet that dude's a great fucking boyfriend. We really did. We're like, he's just a fucking nicest guy.
We
and
have-
he's great looking dude. He's got a fucking awesome accent.
You're pulling the fucking curtain back, aren't
Well,
you?
I'm throwing it all out there.
That's fine.
No,
That's
honest to
fine.
God,
You're
it's-
pulling the curtain back.
And most of this came from Josh, and we would kind of spitball back and forth, and we're like, yeah, it's it just stuck. It was just one of those
For
things.
some backstory,
You tell.
the three of us, our hobby is creating alternate but very plausible realities for just about everyone we meet.
We do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you understand it, right? And we create, and then sometimes they get legs, and they they run
multiple years.
They run off, right? And it's been going on for quite some time. And there's times you have meetings, right? And there's time after that, you're just like, oh, what do you think? And then it goes from there. And I mean, down to, all kinds of stuff. We describe their entire lives, right? And it's being in the people business.
Yes.
Right.
That is what the aftermarket is.
Right. 100%.
Like, no jokes.
And
like
it's fun. It could be fun.
It is the people business.
Exactly.
Because if you don't, your relationships are your currency and your business success.
Right.
And categorically.
And it's unfortunate and incorrect to try and compartmentalize people. But for a fun hobby on the side.
It's a good time.
Right.
Especially if you're
Cocktails,
with in.
sitting around at SEMA.
Judgy McJudge. That's why the page People of SEMA exists.
Right. Well, it started years and years ago. This probably started about 10 or 12 years ago when we were
at the Aria in the bar right there.
I think it started there. I
remember.
We would have drinks, right? And then there would be a pick somebody out of the crowd, and then it was generally
too easy.
Well, it was describe the vehicle
That they drive, their daily driver.
or the profession or both, right? And then if you started getting on a roll about those, then you would describe the rest. You would describe the house. You would describe the wife. You would describe
the hobbies.
The hobbies,
Major detail.
and the way it would go from there. If you started getting on a roll, then you would go. And then it just became a thing, right? And that's where it was at. And one of the things fuck you, honestly. So yes, the whole thing about
it's not the negative.
The whole thing about Andrew was that is the nicest guy, and it was every mother loves Andrew, right? If you bring Andrew home, it was you better marry up Andrew, right? You got to figure out how to put a ring on that.
It took him almost 8 years, but he is I'm the first.
He just became a citizen.
He
can't get married if you're not a citizen.
No, you can't, dude. That's your fucking green card.
He doesn't want one because he doesn't want the points on his license. That's why. But he immediately dethroned me as the favorite grandchild.
See, we were right.
Immediately.
We were
and
right.
We call my grandmother, who's 93. She's like 4 feet of Italian attitude, rage, so to speak. And she's like, yeah, where's Andrew?
Yeah. Well, the problem is he's good looking, but he doesn't piss you off good looking, right? So you're not.
It's the right amount.
You're the right amount. You're not.
He does when he's 10 years older and he looks the same age.
Well, that it pisses me off. It pisses me off. It doesn't piss anybody else off.
It's the right amount.
And he's super nice, right? And he's got the appropriate amount of accent. It's not the off-putting type of accent.
He's very afraid he's going to lose it, actually. Right. And I'm like, you're not. He gets he'll say something. He claims he'll say something in an American accent. And he'll go, oh, I'm like, does it really sound that like that's almost insulting?
The fact that we've just referenced Andrew the whole time and nobody's seen his face. He's been completely off camera this entire and we're not even going to talk about who he works for.
But he's coming on the podcast.
Yeah, he's coming on the podcast. We're going to do it.
They'll get to retort.
Yeah. All right. So I had a question and then you derailed it.
Sorry,
totally my
standard.
fault.
Yeah, no. We had standard questions. We went through the thing. So, favorite car movie?
Oh, Smokey and the Bandit.
Ferrari, girl.
Smokey and the Bandit?
Smokey and the Bandit.
Yeah.
I'm very close to my heart because every day I would drive to school in my Camaro and I don't recommend this to anyone because it was not safe, but I would crank up Eastbound and Down.
Oh, and wear a wedding dress on the way to high school.
No, I would drive between the semi trucks because I had to take the freeway a little bit to school, and I would crank up Eastbound and Down. I would pretend like I was in Smokey and the Bandit.
That's pretty cool.
It's a great movie. It's
then I would come home, and I would put peanut butter and chocolate chips in a bowl. And I would eat that while I watched Smokey and the Bandit after school every day.
Dude, I said you were cool at the beginning. You just keep getting cooler.
Yeah, because you're a major Smokey and the Bandit guy.
I'm a major Smokey and the Bandit guy. I'm honestly, I'm talking about like she's cool, but I bet she had no friends. Like that's
there wasn't.
that's
like,
not something that's.
There weren't 3 or 4 other girls sitting there with 3 or 4 other little bowls.
The fact that mid 40-year-old guys say you were cool doesn't mean you were popular in high school.
All I needed was my car. I am very lucky to have a very solid group of girlfriends. And there's like, I think there's 6 of us, and like we are all in completely different industries. We all look completely different. And
y'all stayed in touch this whole time?
yeah.
Really?
They are truly, I met them actually when I was in university.
Stop saying that, please.
At the gym.
Yeah, OU.
And we just like, they are my core girls. And they're just like, all right, they appreciate that I'm into cars, and like you can just go do that.
But they're not into it.
They fucking hate the dream cruise. But I do occasionally get texts from the ones that are single, and they'll send me a picture of the interior of the guy's car that they're on a date with. What is this?
Oh.
Is it nice?
Is it ever any good?
Sometimes I tell them exactly what it is, but I mean that's up to them to decide. But yeah.
Do you?
But like so like
Careful.
Oh yeah.
Dazed and Confused, another good one.
Never seen it. Is that a good movie?
Oh.
It's the
Wait, are you seriously
it's the
are you
anthem of
joking?
my life. Like
Okay, thank you. I was like, that's
Yeah.
what the feeling watching that movie.
That's what I always thought Woodward Dream Cruise was.
It's not quite like that. I can't describe it. It's like nothing else. But Dazed and Confused was like the intro scene when they're playing Sweet Emotion in the 70 Orbit Orange GTO.
yes.
That's how you wanted to pull into high school
like
every day.
that's the feeling
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I had in high school, and like going out
I'm
to
getting the
Woodward.
chills right now. I just
It's-
fucking that.
It's
Unbelievable
It's
scene.
it's so good. It's so good. I just watch it. It's like the first scene of Top Gun. You can just watch it over and over and over again.
I always struggle. That scene makes me struggle with whether I want a vinyl top on a 70
I
Judge or
fucking
not.
hate vinyl tops. I'm just gonna say
Yeah,
it.
but it's like
I can't.
that car's
They're
a little
they're
tough.
So I-
appropriate. They're appropriate on the right car.
I knew someone.
Yeah.
I knew someone that had one, and did not have a vinyl top, and I was like, "This is perfection."
Yeah.
It's what I wish the Dazed and
Who drove
Confused car
That
was.
car, that color, it shouldn't have had it.
Who drove the Judge?
Wasn't it? I can't remember his name.
Pickford.
Yeah.
All right, we're transition. All right, so
We need to have a whole episode on car movies.
Yeah.
little
We haven't talked about Vanishing Point. There's so many
little-
good ones.
Horrible movie, but it's great.
It is a horrible
You gotta
movie.
watch it. It's-
that's a bad movie.
Killer soundtrack though.
I never listened to the soundtrack. We've got it on VHS.
Oh,
You ever watched Ronin?
I haven't actually.
Ronin's a great movie.
He's
Great
making
car
a face.
chase movie. Ronin, good.
I've got to watch
Yeah.
it.
He's all bad Max.
Ronin's a good fucking flick. It really is.
I've heard that.
It's a
I'm
little.
coming over.
I knew he would like it because it's a little
Your little
European.
fucking home theater thing over
Yeah.
there, dude.
We come over. Let's watch Ronin in the home theater. In the home theater. All right. So little Adrian's drifting off to sleep. 12, 13 years old. The spirit of Zora Arkus Duntoff comes down and says, "Hey, I'm just letting you know, the automotive aftermarket and the automotive world as a career is off limits. You cannot pursue the automotive career. What do you do?
Architecture.
Architecture.
Yeah.
You're
Or
just
actually,
throwing
no,
it. You're
no,
throwing
no.
a dig at your sister.
No, I'm not. I'm genuinely not. I love architecture, and we live in like the Frank Lloyd Wright mecca. I'm
Yes.
a big
You're a
Santiago.
mid-century
You're in honestly
Santiago
way better than
Calatrava
Detroit,
fan. So,
right around here.
Funny story. So like Vin Inatra, he lives in an unbelievable mid-century house that he restored, and that's one of our like pastimes on the like we're having a lazy morning. And we'll watch these architecture channels on YouTube, and his house was featured on one of these channels, and like it was just the white because he like had all his cars in there and everything. It was so crazy, but I take that back. I would be a storm chaser
Oh, that's pretty cool too.
or an Aurora chaser. I'd put those.
We're gonna
I
get to
am-
the Aurora.
I
We're gonna
am-
finish. We're gonna finish it off with the Aurora.
Me and Fenn were storm chasers back in the
I
high
bet
school
you
days.
were
In the
you
fucking
guys.
LeBaron, we used to chase some storms. The dude threw a league ball at us because we had to avoid. There was a fucking tornado.
First,
in
y'all don't have
Deerfield.
storms up here.
There
Y'all don't have
There was
storms.
a tornado in Deerfield in the
That's
90s.
small. It was a bit. I barely.
Yeah.
It was F 0.5.
And we used it as an excuse to do lawn jobs, right?
Because you were storm chasing?
Well, there were fucking trees everywhere.
Did you have any gear in the LeBaron?
Probably.
Then you were not a
He had
storm
lot of
chaser.
gear.
I am a certified Skywarn tornado spotter.
Really?
Yeah, anyone can do it. It's volunteer. You pay. You can pay I think.
Just when I thought you couldn't get any cooler.
I've been in water spouts, tornadoes. Yeah. I don't know.
We were there. Do you remember that freak storm that came through Illinois in late February?
Yes.
So I'm standing by the window. I'm watching this thing roll, and I'm just fast. I'm just this is my vibe right now.
I enjoy
Y'all know
good
what
He's
storms
freaking out, and he's
Y'all know what
freaking out
storms
by he's like, close, get away from the window. I'm like, no. This is the Midwest.
It's not gonna get that bad.
We watch it roll in. That's what we do here. It's fine.
You can always beat it to the cellar.
Yeah. We're in the top floor of an apartment complex.
You guys, honestly. Now, I get the winter. The winter I've never dealt with before.
Oh.
The fucking storms. Dude.
Well, it's nothing like you guys have. I dealt with one of those. I told you about that, right? When we come back from Kyle's bachelor party, I thought I was gonna fucking die.
Yo, you have no idea what real southern storms
I experienced it, dude.
That shit is legit.
Yeah, it's frightening.
I would probably be a storm chaser in Texas or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've
You
always
a
been
Twister
fast.
fan? You like the movie Twister?
I just
How about
watched.
the new
I just
one?
watched it on the
watched the
flight
new one?
home from Australia. I haven't watched the new
Bill
one.
Great,
Paxton.
great
Not
soundtrack. Horrible movie.
Not
That's
good.
what
Great
I've heard.
soundtrack.
That's
It's
what I've
about
heard.
the remake of Roadhouse. They should have left.
I haven't watched that either. I just
Have you not?
They're all these.
just said
Everyone's
so.
remaking
I would.
everything. There are
I
no
would watch.
originals.
I would watch Roadhouse remake, as bad as it was, and it was horrible.
It was
horrible.
entertaining.
I would watch it 100 times in a row before I'd watch Fall Guy.
Oh my god.
Fall Guy has
It
to be
looks
the
horrendous.
worst
So bad.
movie made, probably ever.
Have
Probably
you
ever.
seen Live, Die, Repeat with Emily Blunt?
No.
It's kind of like a sci-fi. I think there's another name for it. They had kind of two titles. Her and Tom Cruise.
No.
No,
haven't seen
oh,
that.
you
What,
guys-
3 years ago?
No,
4
it's maybe more than that.
What was the other ride?
But it was like a Daniel Simon, sci-fi action. They're repeating the same day over and over again, or he's repeating the same day over and over.
Was the other
I
name
got you.
Groundhog Day?
It's
What's the other Ryan Gosling movie? Is it Driver?
Barbie.
No.
Driver.
And he was
Baby
badass.
Driver.
Driver.
No, not Baby Driver.
Driver. Just
He was
Driver.
fucking
Great, the
badass.
Great Man.
Baby Driver, also great.
Baby Driver,
Great movie.
Excellent.
But Driver, he's wearing that
Driver.
scorpion jacket or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's pretty good.
the Gray Man.
There were
was
some
better, though,
there
I
were
think.
some great scenes. It wasn't a great movie, but there were some great
The
scenes.
character was cool.
Yeah. There were some great scenes. Shit. I had a train of thought.
Yeah, you were going somewhere.
I know I was going
It's
somewhere.
on a different track now.
Yeah. All right. So you chose Storm Chaser. Super cool. You just keep getting cooler. Damn.
It's gonna go the other way. The more whiskey I drink, the
No, we talked about
Favorite board game?
no, we talked about movie. We talked about thing. Shit. We talked about everything. I had a train of thought. I apologize. Completely lost it.
Man.
I had a really good question. It was teed up.
Sounds
Now I
like
have
it, yeah.
FOMO.
It was teed up and ready to go.
What flavor scone does Andrew bake and bring to you in bed?
I do all the baking.
I think they make.
Andrew don't
I
bake.
think they make free
Yeah, we-
ends over there. Free ends. You had one of those?
He bakes horsepower.
Oh,
He's into
cooking it up.
You know what that means.
Computers and
You know what that
cars.
means.
Yeah. No, I do the baking.
Okay.
And
Is there a lot of
he does some mean grilling too.
horsepower talk at home? A lot of car talk.
Yeah. We talk about cars a lot. He comes from more of like your
Sophisticated cars.
yeah. But also, I mean, he also grew up where in Australia,
Everybody wears leather jackets like Mad Max. That's all I can see.
like Subarus, like the old school, like the pre-bug-eyed WRX kind of era, and then he's always been into Audis, and I come from a quintessentially American muscle background, and I mean, the longer I've worked in the industry, I've become more exposed to different ways to express yourself in the aftermarket, and because he and I come from two very different enthusiast backgrounds, we just love to talk about the industry and cars in general and kind of share different perspectives on, whatever the latest car launches or just the way, a project car that we would want to build one day. And then, just the industry in general, kind of what's going on in the world.
Is there any crossover from his world into your world to combine styles or
I think
dream of a project car?
I think it's more like our philosophy for the industry is the same. It's the more ways that you can customize your car, the more ideas that are out there, the more people that are experimenting and trying different things. It's all good for the industry, no matter what it is. And, granted, when I was 16, I was very like, anytime somebody rolled up with a Mustang or whatever, like it was all in good fun. And nowadays it's very, and now that especially that I don't work for GM anymore, and I did say this when I worked there, like the bigger the industry is, the more opportunity there is. It helps all of us. It lifts everyone. It helps everyone grow their business. And I can certainly be more vocal and more straightforward about that now. But that really is what I think the key to the longevity of the aftermarket is.
Keep the base growing.
You know what they're not going to talk about on the way home? This podcast. Everything else. Quick. All right. Like lightning round.
Question?
Lightning round. No, I completely came up with another one.
I got one.
Okay, well, you can. We got all the time in the world. Still got whiskey. Metallica or Def Leppard?
Def Leppard.
Okay.
My boss at Quadlock is our CMO, Ben. We were on a call yesterday. He's like, sorry, guys, I'm trying to get these Metallica tickets, and I'm on hold, so hopefully he doesn't, I don't get
Poison or Guns N' Roses?
Ooh. Guns N' Roses, I think.
Cinderella or Billy Squier?
Cinderella.
Tommy Lee or Axl Rose?
Nikki Sixx.
Yeah. Nikki Sixx liked to party.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did Tommy Lee wasn't afraid to party either.
He was kind of a one-trick pony, if you know what I mean. What's your question? He didn't like to party.
Yeah.
Fucking Pamela Anderson.
That one threw me off.
Did it?
Yeah. Because it reminds me of the VHS tape that was like
honk honk.
Well, it was sitting up with the rest of the VHS. It was sitting up with the rest of the VHS.
Yes. I know where you're going with that one.
Everybody knows what I'm going with that. He honked the horn with it. You know what I'm talking about.
It was sitting up with the rest of the VHS tapes when I was a kid. And it was like Body Shop Tour. Like written in Sharpie.
Oh, and you're like, that's not nobody did a Body Shop Tour.
All right, if you and Andrew are going to collaborate on a build, you guys decide. It's like collectively, you're like, we're building one car. One car. This is going to be the project car. What is it, and what is it powered with?
We might disagree on this.
A Barra-powered Mustang.
Be powered by Vegemite.
I'll be eating the Vegemite for sure.
Okay.
Maybe we'll call the license the vanity plate. We'll
That
say
stuff
Vegemite.
sucks.
It's so you haven't had a proper
Did we try it?
piece
I
of
don't remember
Vegemite
trying
toast.
it. Yeah.
But it's not just trying. Because
Years ago, I had a friend in high school that was from Australia, and he tried to get me to eat Vegemite all the time.
But by
sandwiches.
itself?
No, on a sandwich.
But on like a nice piece of bread with a shitload of butter.
Maybe not.
Yeah. No,
I'll give anything a shot multiple times.
Really nice piece of sourdough toasted, lots of butter, very like Bondo, like a skim coat. Vegemite.
Okay, like a skim coat.
Work it in.
That's like the proper way to do it. I eat a lot more Vegemite than most, but I don't know why I like it so much. But it's also really good as a grilled cheese. Yeah, I know.
Really?
What exactly is it?
It's like the yeast left over from making beer.
Okay.
It's like a darker, chunky peanut butter.
It's not chunky.
Is it like canned?
That's why you didn't like it, because you were.
It's grainy, not chunky.
Not creamy.
It's not.
It's creamy, yeah.
Was it stale?
Maybe I got old ass Vegemite. Maybe I got old ass Vegemite. This is also 20 years ago.
Like Vienna sausages?
No, it's in a jar.
Okay.
It's like
I have like
jar.
when you fly on like Qantas, the main airline in Australia, they give you like little like packets of it. I save them so when I fly on other international airlines, I can have Vegemite.
It's super creamy, like peanut butter creamy.
Yeah.
We've got to be
Really?
able to procure that.
All right. What's your question though?
We've got.
I
Tons.
asked the question. You were just
So if they're going to collab on a build,
what's the project car and what's the power?
It's going to be a Ute. Obviously,
I
a
think
Ute.
I think it would be a 70.5 split bumper Camaro.
Okay.
Monte Carlo treatment.
Murdered out.
Powered by the nastiest
twin turbo Audi motor.
Nastiest, biggest big block we can find. But I think we'd probably have to go fuel injected and powered by HP Tuners core ECU.
Okay. Big block. I'd have gone with something more exotic. I pegged you guys for something.
You don't have.
Well, how's this for exotic? The next powertrain I think I want to put in the Monte is a L5P Duramax.
That's cool. We got a Duramax swap square body out there. It rips.
How can?
But it's in a truck. No one would expect a Monte. I
Where it
love
belongs.
it.
Belongs in a truck.
Because I had a
I'm
square.
going to go on the
body.
record because he's coming on here, Mr. Tom Peters, right?
Yeah.
The next thing I'm building, I don't care what it is, it's got a flat plane crank.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, actually, 70.5 Camaro.
Exactly.
With an LT6.
Exactly. Please.
That
Bring
would
it
be-
back
man,
fucking
I could
home.
I could fall asleep to the sound of a flat plane crank. It's
We
so
talked about it before we came on air.
spectacular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I love it.
I know.
I'm a sound guy.
It's
Yeah.
it's
If it
gonna
doesn't
happen.
sound, if it
180
doesn't,
headers, small displacement, high RPM, flat plane crank. All that's just rad. I'll tell you what. Autotopia did that 65 Mustang. Kind of a ratty little car, but fucking nasty. It's a small like 289 or something. 289 or 302.
Yeah.
It spins like 8,000 RPMs. Sounds
Tiny little
fucking
collection.
hellacious. It's the gnarliest.
that's the
sounding
way
thing.
cars should sound.
Yeah, sounds so good.
Yeah. You can't have a conversation in the Monte. Like I don't have a radio, I don't have speakers, nothing in it. The sound is the engine.
He speaks a different language. There's nothing to talk about.
Speak the same language.
Dude, it's just softballs after another.
I wouldn't be surprised if he knows some sort of like jujitsu.
It's not
Oh,
jujitsu.
actually,
No, it's gonna be
actually, karate.
Yes. See?
Yeah.
And
He's
his-
a total fucking package.
Yeah.
And his
But-
dad and his dad
Karate's a
is
show sport.
Is a third Dan black belt.
Yeah, you don't fuck with a black belt. You go.
Let alone a third.
Yeah, black
level.
belts for
If
show.
it was jujitsu, okay.
It's not a fucking
Karate's
black-
it's a show sport. It's like juggling. That's like saying you've mastered juggling, right? That's like saying you're the best juggler.
Okay.
Right. Oh, you can see all the juggling I do.
Let him know that.
I could do.
I wouldn't say
He's
that.
right there.
I just want to see a foot just
if,
in his frame.
I want to see Elliot just CGI just. This has been absolutely
It's been a
fucking
lot of
phenomenal. Completely a train wreck.
Those are the best kind.
But I've watched a couple other podcasts you've been on, and I'm like, you know what? It's so prim and proper, and they're asking all the same questions, whatever. No, we're gonna take this one on a ride, right?
Let's have a good fucking time.
Absolutely, good fucking time. We're doing this again. So we've already locked down
I
two
think
more.
We got like 4 out of this one.
We've got Andrew
Yeah.
from the company he works for. All right,
Everyone's going to be surprised when he comes on because
it's going to be a complete surprise. Yeah, everyone's like, "Holy shit, that dude is fucking mildly good looking." And we're going to have Adrienne's dad, Tom Peters. We're fixing to rock this out. You guys are both Andrew from HP Tuners. I'm gonna give you the thumb. Y'all are coming to SEMA, right? We're gonna be there in like 6 days.
Where I'm already pre-gaming for Thursday night.
You got to prep that liver.
This was a good
Thursday night's gonna be a
This is
party.
gonna be my 17th SEMA. 17th, so
Yeah,
I'm very
that's pretty
prepared.
good. This was a nice
We're
little
up there.
warm up.
Yeah.
I've held a lot of credentials for our executives hung over at the SEMA show before, so
You guys get to party. Everybody listening and you guys here, you get to party at the show Thursday night. We have to fucking work. We party all the other nights.
Thursday night.
But we got to work Thursday night. Yeah.
nah.
I'm not working Thursday
Yeah,
night.
I'm
You are.
See?
I thought you said we were all working.
You are.
You said no.
I don't.
You said
I'm like the introvert. I'm
you
just gonna
said we're
drink
gonna work.
and fucking hang. You'll be doing your thing.
Well, I'm gonna party then too. Fuck it.
All right.
It's SEMA.
Yeah.
It's SEMA.
It's work hard, play hard
That's
in
it.
every sense.
Yeah.
But be a hell of a party, man. Look
Quad
forward to it.
lock,
Yes.
Ardent. It's been up there. You realize that
Dude, if that was a video, you would have
That's
gotten so many
That's
plays.
$50,000 right there. It's been up there for the last hour and a half.
I wish it was a quad lock logo because they're my main.
Oh, we'll put the quad lock. All right, Elliot knows right now to put the quad lock logo. Shout out to quad lock. Ardent.
I'm sorry, what was it?
Yeah, you heard me. Quad lock. Andrew, HP Tuner, or we're doing all this shit, right? We're fixing to party at SEMA. Adrienne, seriously, appreciate it. It's been absolutely fucking amazing time.
Appreciate you guys coming out.
Yeah. See you again next week.
See you.
Cheers.
Here comes the roundhouse.
Yeah. That's gonna be like multiple kicks.
It was all a joke.